Ms. Reina and Dr. Mary are not here. I don't see them.
I'm having problems with my software. I can't get everybody in there. I just don't know what's going on.
We can hear you, Ms. Watts. We can hear
you, Ms. Watts.
Yeah, well, you're good. You're good, Ms. Watts.
You're good.
Do we have a quorum, sir?
I'm checking. That's what I'm checking right now.
Yeah, we do. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us.
Okay, good. Yeah, Mr. Guerrero. I see Mr. Guerrero already here.
There's 5 of us.
Hello, yeah, this is Mr. Val Guerrero. Hey, I might have to cut out a little early, but I'll let you guys know.
No problem, Mr. Val.
Okay. It's 12 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock, so whenever you're ready, Ms. Watts.
Okay. Let's start the meeting. The time is 12 noon. I call this meeting to order. Could we please stand for the pledge? The pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. Now we will have a moment of silence. Okay. Next on our agenda, we have open forum. Mr. Superintendent.
Open forum.
I put it there beside you.
Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, Ms. Watts. Good afternoon, Ms. Watts, board members. Just with the sign-in sheet.
I just put it here. I just made the email.
Oh, okay, gotcha. One staff member sign up for the open forum today, and they'll be speaking about number 5. So let me read the public comment statement before we allow our staff members to speak. The next item is public comment. The public comment portion of our meeting is available to members of the public who wish to address an agenda item to be considered by the board on today's agenda. Anyone who speak during public comment must sign in prior to the start of the meeting and list the agenda item they want to discuss. Each public comment speaker will be allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to address the board. The public comment portion of the meeting will allow all speakers who have signed up before the start of the meeting to address the board at this time regarding an item on today's agenda. I ask that you not discuss students who are not your own child. Policies GBA, G, and GF are available for specific complaints regarding employee, parents, and community members' complaints, respectively. Thank you. And our first speaker is Ms. Alma de la Garza.
Good day to everyone. Madam President, school board members, and Dr. Asais. My name is Alma de la Garza, and I am the Donna TSTA President. On today's agenda, you have a couple of items which I would like to address on behalf of our members. The consideration for a pay increase and compensation plan are before you, as well as an adjusted school calendar. We are certainly still in very uncertain times, and we know that this year, 2020-21, will be times we will reflect on in the future as times of fear and loss. Many of us are now quite too familiar with experiencing or hearing about the passing away of our own family, friends, neighbors, colleagues, and even leaders. It is definitely not easy when every day we wake up and find that we still can't seem to be able to beat this virus. I am a teacher, and I can honestly tell you that I am afraid to return to the campus setting for the reason of how much greater the risk to contact the virus will increment. Our community, unfortunately, continues to have extremely high ratios of positive cases, and we cannot lose any more of the people we care about. Let's make the memory of this deadly virus one that clearly indicates, and without any doubt, that Donna ISD took any and all necessary steps to protect and save our community from continued losses to this deadly enemy, and that when it is safe to return to normal operations, we can still count everyone back. Let's protect our staff by allowing those that can to work remotely and lessen the risk for those who have to report. The other item is the pay increase being considered. We hope that you will consider the vision and mission of Donna ISD when making your final decision on pay. Please keep in mind that better pay significantly aligns with better student performance and outcomes. We want to continue to retain good employees and spend less time recruiting and training new staff, which ultimately does have an impact on the educational curve of all our students. Every single employee plays a critical role in the education process, and staff retention is key to that effort and progress. Please make this again a year which we can positively remember that Donna ISD will rise above and excel even in these rough times. We need to continue with our educational plan safely and with all certainty that eventually we will get back to normal. Thank you.
Next we have business and finance, and this is under consent agenda. So if there's any clarifications or any discussion that the board might want to have at this time, if not, I ask for a motion. I can't seem to hear, sir.
I think you muted Dr. Valdez.
There we go. I just want to confirm on the business and finance pay grade, or on number 5, that we are approving option number 3, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I make the motion to approve.
I second the motion.
The motion made by Dr. Valdez.
Was second by Dr. Valdez, made by Ms.
Sir, I am having a really hard time. I can't hear anything. It's going, I can hear only mumbling. I can't hear anything. So maybe Ms. Valdez can take over. I can't seem to get the sound controls, the audio or something. I don't know. We're using Rudy's phone.
Yeah. Let's,
Okay. Do you want to try to resolve this issue, Dr. Azaiz, or what do you want me to do?
I think Ms. Watts, you still having a hard time hearing us, right?
I can hear you, but when somebody else comes on, I can't hear anything. I hear very mumbling.
Yeah, in that case, we may have to transition, yes. Dr. Valdez, I think
Okay.
if it's okay.
Okay, so then we're seeking a motion on everything under consent agenda.
Okay. Guys,
Yes.
point of order. I think Ms. Valdez, you were second. I think Ronnie says you're going to assume the we need to redo the motion.
Okay, so do I have a motion for consent agenda as presented?
Yes, I make the motion.
Okay, motion by David. How do you vote, Mr.
I second.
Second it. And I'll vote
Okay.
no.
And Mrs. Watts?
Ms.
Mrs. Watts?
I can't hear anything. I'm so sorry. I
Miss-
can't hear it. It's mumbling.
Ms. Watts, can you hear me? Can
I
you?
can only hear you.
Okay.
We have the phone right there, but I can't hear anybody else.
Okay, so
Okay,
Dr.
thank you.
Valdez is asking, are you approving or not approving the consent agenda?
I can't hear what I'm approving because I cannot hear you, sir. I mean, I can hear you, but I cannot hear the rest.
I repeat, it's Dr. Valdez is asking if you approve the consent agenda.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Motion. Thank you.
Okay, and I also approve, motion carries.
And I vote in favor as well.
Okay, Mrs. Reyna just came on board also. Okay.
Mr. Guerra.
Now we're moving on
Okay.
to, is it,
I didn't hear
let's see.
myself.
We're gonna move on now to.
Human resources. So Ms.
Human
Watts, we just
resources.
approved consent and we move into human resources, Ms. Watts, if you can hear me.
Okay. Human resources, all right. The first one is discussion. Well, Ms. Valdez can take over
Yeah,
because
correct.
I can't hear the rest.
She is.
Okay, human resources, discussion and possible action to approve the 2020-2021 Dawn ISD compensation plan. If there's
Thank you, Dr. Valdez. And we have with us here Dr. Sorolla and Ms. Cancino. They're going to do a quick presentation, and I know if, and then a follow up with any question that our board members may have. Let me check make sure that Dr. Sorolla and Ms. Cancino.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
All right.
I'm trying to share my screen.
All right.
There, I have it shared.
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay.
It's up. I had already changed it. Who's that?
That's where I'm turning it on from his lot.
Oh, so she can be on.
Yes.
Ms. Cancino,
Yes, sir.
your screen is up.
Yes. Good afternoon, board members, ladies and gentlemen of the public. I'm here to do a short presentation on the employee pay increase, just to clarify one of the items under business. So the proposed employee pay increase is, as we discussed in our last board meeting, what we proposed and was just approved. It is a $2,000 pay increase for all teachers and nurses and anyone that falls under the teacher pay scale. For administrative professionals, we have a 3% increase of a new midpoint. So it's like a twofold type of increase. It's not going off of last year's pay system because we've now increased the minimum, the midpoint, and the maximum ranges on each pay category. So these percents will be off of that new midpoint. And then you have the total cost of the increase by the different categories. For administrative, it was a 3%. For clerical and instructional support, it is 5% off of this new midpoint. And for the auxiliary category, it is 7% off of the new midpoint. Also, to clarify is that all employees will receive their respective percent increase from the new midpoint, even if their compensation is above the maximum. And an employee must have worked 90 days with the school district to be eligible for the pay increase. That is, those are the two criteria to receive the pay increase. As I mentioned, that there will be new midpoints, and this is where it's part of the compensation plan. We have a new pay plans, which we go into detail in the actual compensation, but these are, let me share my screen. These are the new pay plans. So the new starting salary for teachers will be $51,500, and then you see all the new salaries up to 20 years. And then we go through each administrative, each pay plan, and you'll see here that now what we've adjusted is this section right here, the minimum. So if we do a 3% increase on this pay grade for this group of employees, and you have this as part of your packet, these are the estimated pay increases that employees in those categories will be receiving.
Say a couple of things, Ms. Cancino, to our board members, to our community. One of the things we talked about is really how to make our district even more competitive, how we can attract and retain the best staff and the best teachers. And as you can see, if you can leave it on the slide, Ms. Cancino, Our starting salary for our teachers is 51,500. Just that was around $46,000. So we actually improve a lot, and I know that House Bill 3 helped us a lot also. But we are more competitive now. I think it's higher. I don't know if Westlaco or PSGA are going to give any raises to their teachers, but as we stand today, our starting salary is actually higher for our teachers, higher than Westlaco, and is higher than PSGA, which just makes our district even more obviously competitive. We want to make sure again that we recruit the best teachers, we keep them, we retain them, and because that's only way we can improve our student outcomes. And so it's very exciting to see where we are right now versus where we were maybe 2 years ago. And so again, this happened with the support of our board members, and the hard work of our business office, with Ms. Cancino, to make sure we are fiscally conservative and fiscally strong, so we can afford to be able to give this kind of raises to our teachers and our staff. So it's a very good spot. We are in a very good spot as far as the district, as far as compensation, and our goal to always keep up with this as much as possible, because we want to always reward our teachers for their hard work and also stay competitive.
Dr. AZ or Ms. Cancino, did we receive this particular PowerPoint?
No, this one was just emailed, and the reason I wanted to include it was because as I was looking at the packet, I noticed that I missed one of which, actually that's the reason I think you were seeking clarification on the pay increase. I was supposed to have this attached to your packet, and I don't believe it's part of the business plan, but it is exactly what I'm presenting, this one sheeter. So I emailed it at around 10:30 or so. I don't know if you received it.
Okay, you emailed it. Okay, that's perfect.
No, I emailed it to the superintendent.
We will make sure to share it with all our board members.
Yeah, if it's possible, it'd be good.
We will.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
So it is exactly the same, the option 3.
Exactly the same. Mm-hmm.
Exactly the same thing. The only thing that was added was the little verbiage on the bottom, which I went over in my my presentation. It is that everyone will receive the pay increase, even if they are maxed out. And the only other change is that they must have worked with the district 90 days to be eligible for the pay increase.
Yeah. And we need to clarify also the cost for this increase is a $4.3 million. And as you know, this is recurring, right? This is gonna be happening. So this is added to our budget, if you will, the $4.3 million. So I want to make sure that everybody knows how much it's costing the district. So again, it's also how we are working hard to make sure again that we're taking care of our staff and our teachers. So
it is the same information. It is exactly what I had presented at the last board meeting for the third scenario. And what I did add, and as I was going through it, I noticed that this sheet was missing, was the pay tables, which include the percent increase for each one. And you're able to see the detail on each category.
Yeah, that's what I like. I don't remember seeing that on the step, but that's good.
Yeah, I was supposed to put this one on top, and then the detail of the pay plans were behind it. But as I was looking through it this morning, I noticed I didn't see this one, so that's why I emailed it to the superintendent to email to you all, so you could have it before the board meeting. And I asked to be allowed to do this little PowerPoint just to clarify, because I had missed it before. So basically, this little presentation here, that's what it is. It is exactly that one sheeter there. It just looks a little different because I removed some of the things, but it is the same information that I submitted, that all the pay plans will also include. So let me just put up the pay plans. I apologize, I have like 5 different. Here we go. So that is the new teacher hire scale, and I mentioned, we will be increasing the midpoint, so the pay increase is not based off of current year, midpoints. So it'll be these new ones that we have here. And on the last column, you will see that is the estimated pay increase for all those people on those positions. And we go by all the categories. So all these have been redone with the new minimums, midpoints, and maximums. And we have it for all the employee categories for the administrative.
Yeah.
And then we have the clerical, paraprofessional, which also have the, here they have the 5% increase, and then you have the each amount, estimated amount.
Right.
We have the instructional support at 5% and their estimated amounts. And then we have the auxiliary positions with 7% in their estimated pay increase.
And just to clarify, if it's approved today, this will take effect starting next month, would be September 1st, obviously.
Correct.
I really like that, Ms. Cancino. Great job. You know, sometimes employees don't understand what the midpoint raise is, but the way you did it is just so self-explanatory. That's awesome. I love the way you did it.
Thank you, ma'am. And then Dr. Sorolla is here if you need any more clarifications on the actual compensation plan, which is, it's derived, this information is used to build that compensation plan.
What you'll see in the other document, it has this information as she indicated, and it also contains information on stipends and other aspects of compensation. So it's about it's a much longer document, but she's absolutely right. The actual comprehensive document is based off of this information that we obtained from TASB.
So that's what we have for your board members. Again, if you have any questions, but we're very excited. Again, we feel like we're in a very good spot. Thanks to your support. Again, thanks to everybody working together, understanding. Because we had to kind of make some sacrifices, some adjustment to where we spend money, but obviously for good causes, right? In this case, we wanted to be sure to reward our staff and teachers for their hard work and dedication, and ensure that we're very competitive as a district, so we can recruit, retain the best of the best.
Guys, can I, Dr. Sorolla, Dr. Aziz, can I make a couple of comments that I wanted to make on this compensation plan?
Sure.
I went through the different pay grades and stuff, and I see that there's some inconsistencies as far as some directors being in one level, other directors being in another level, some employees being at one level, while others are being at different levels. There was an inconsistency there. And Dr. Sorolla just made a comment that he is basing this off of TASB. Can that be addressed, please?
Let me clarify. So what we do is we've discussed this previously, we rely on the expertise of TASB because of the market data that they compile from districts across the state. And so anything that we do with the compensation plan, we rely on their expert advice before recommending any revision or any compensation plan to the Board of Trustees. So I wouldn't say that we it's exclusive, but we do seek out their guidance because of the access to information that they have and because of the expertise that they have with regard to this kind of planning.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you rely on their guidance, but then there's inconsistencies on several. For example, I mean, if you have a director, we have X number of directors that are at level pay grade 7. But then you have another director that's at pay grade 8.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Yeah, Mr.
If I may add a little bit, I don't have the document in front of me, sir. So are you referring? Is it the special ed director?
It is special ed, yes. Mm-hmm.
It is because of the complexity of that position. and all the compliance that it deals with. So what TASB does take into account is that exactly that. How complex are the duties for that position? So as you know, we do have a large special education population. This position is responsible for not only compliance with state, our policies, but also with federal. They do manage the SHARS program for the district as well, which is also very complex. So based on that complexity is why this one position is higher than the other ones.
And you'll see that distinction as well with some of the other director positions. I know that there is at least one or two that are also in pay grade 6, and I know that several factors are considered. The number of employees who are supervised, that's one particular aspect, but also the number of sub-elements below that particular department as far as different areas to supervise. And some of these departments are more complex than others, and that leads to the differentiation.
Okay.
Mr. Guerrero, because the title, what you're talking about, director, it doesn't automatically mean it's in the same pay grade. So different director, which is the title, could be in different pay grades depending on what they're talking about, the complexity or the scope of the work or responsibilities.
Okay. So this is, I mean, we have a report from TASB that says that, I mean, for example, special ed director, you brought it up. The complexity of that position requires someone with more specialized skills.
Yes, sir.
That the other director may not possibly need.
Yeah, so I'll talk about the process, Mr. Guerrero. The way we try to do it is we ask TASB to look at the document and see if there's any kind of revision, right? So they usually will submit this to us, right? And we have some question like you, and these are valid question. We ask, why did you move this one to 6, or why did you move this one to 5? We all follow up with them because we don't just take it as is, because we know that we have to answer to you, to answer to our board members, to our community, to our staff, if they have questions. And some cases, even some staff members will come back and say, wait, I feel I'm in the wrong pay scale. So can we look at it again? So we also email or talk with TASB and provide them with information. Say, here's the concern that was brought to our attention, what you guys think. Go back and forth. Obviously, nobody's perfect, no document is perfect, but we try to do our to make sure that is as fair as possible and thought with TASB, because they do this kind of job with tons of district in the area and also in Texas.
So what we're saying is, okay, we may also have, and I'm going to just elaborate on something, that we may have someone who holds a title of coordinator, whose requirements or job requirements are not as much as someone else, but yet because the title says coordinator, now that they get bumped into a new pay grade. So are we at the local level, which would be Dr. Sorolla? Would you be evaluating all of those and double checking to make sure that, that we have people in the right slots, looking at their job description, doing it all, looking at all the different things that they do, versus someone just because they have for example, coordinator title, now, because they supervise certain amount of people, now they get automatically bumped into the next grade level, right? And when in reality, is the level of coordination to the point that justifies them being put at a pay grade?
You're absolutely right. That is the responsibility of human resources, and my ultimate responsibility is to make sure that we are constantly reviewing the compensation plan, constantly reviewing job descriptions, constantly reviewing the expectations of employees to ensure that what they're doing is in alignment with their job description, and that their job description is up to date, accurate, and aligned with the compensation plan.
And Dr. Sorolla, didn't we just have TASB come in and do this analysis already? So really, our compensation plan is very much updated in every area.
If it does,
the TASB, they worked with us last year, even before I came to the district. They did a big, I don't want to say overhaul, but they had a heavy involvement. And this year, what we did was maintenance. So they did further assist us, not to the degree that it was last year, but we have been constantly trying, since I've been here and even before I got here, to really revamp our compensation plan, make sure that our job descriptions and everything, it meets the expectations that Mr. Guerrero specified. I agree completely. That is the expectation and the goal. It does take some time to get there, and it is a constant process. If you leave this document, if you leave it for a few months or a year, it's immediately going to become outdated because the market is constantly changing, and just things can change very easily. So it's a constant process. It's a little bit, yeah.
Dr. Sorala, plus I also remember last year when you brought us when TASB came and did the study results, I remember specifically the special ed one because I saw that one was higher, but the justification, there was a lot of notes there that you provided on the justification on why it was upgraded to a higher pay grade. So all of that was included as backup. I remember that very clearly from last year.
Thank you. And it is overwhelming, though. I know you guys get a lot of information, and that compensation plan, there's a ton to remember there, but it was discussed, and the complexity of the position and the number of employees who were overseen and the number of programs that are overseen. That was the justification for the higher pay grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that information, Dr. Solana.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Is there any more questions from any board members, or are we ready to make a motion to approve?
Make the motion to approve.
Okay,
Second.
Mr. Guerrero
I'm in favor.
and Ms. Reina,
In favor?
Mrs. Watts, Dr. Azif, maybe you can.
Yes, Ms. Watts, can you hear me? We make a motion for item number 1 for the possible action to approve the 2020-21 compensation plan. Are you in favor? Can you approve, Ms. Watts, or not? I don't know if she can hear me. She's not hearing us.
Okay.
Hello? Monty?
Yes, Mrs. Watts, do you approve the compensation plan as presented?
Yeah, she said yes.
Yes, okay, and I also vote in favor, motion passes. The second one, item number 2, update on the self-funded medical plan, Dr. Az.
Yeah, Dr. Valdez, I have a request, if possible. We have with us Lou Arias. He's our consultant from Gallagher, and he was proposing if possible, he can take care of item number 3 before item number 2, because somehow they feel like it's related, but he wants to change the order. I don't know if it will be an issue changing the order.
Tony?
Yes, ma'am. We need a motion to deviate from the agenda and take that item first.
Okay, do I have a motion to deviate from the agenda and adjust those 2 items?
I'll make the motion to deviate from the agenda and adjust.
Okay. Second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. David?
Favor.
Favor? And I also vote in favor. Mrs. Watts?
Also vote in favor, ma'am?
Okay, motion carries. We'll go ahead and go with item number 3 first, and then item number 2.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Lou Arias, I know you're here.
And Dr. Az, if I can make a couple of preliminary comments regarding number 3, and then I'll turn things over to Mr. Arias. I'm going to share my screen, and if you can just confirm that you can see this document.
Yes.
Okay, very good. What I want to do is just briefly go over the process we followed for the stop loss RFP. This is a timeline, and so just a quick synopsis. Mr. Arias is gonna follow me here in a moment. So on June 29th of this year, we released the stop loss RFP out to the market. That began the process, and then July 6th was the deadline for any kind of questions related to the RFP. They had to be submitted to the district. July 21st is when the RFP responses were due. On July 23rd, the stop loss RFP results were reviewed with the purchasing department and with our Gallagher Consultants. We then, the next day, we went ahead and asked that best and final offers be requested from the different carriers. And the due date for the best and final offer was July 28th at 10 a.m. And those were submitted. On July the 30th, those best and final offers were reviewed. And then on August the 5th, I convened a committee of 6, insurance committee. That committee met to review the best and final offers, to review those and to score them. We also had Mr. Arias present for technical assistance during that process. And today, on August the 11th, the Employee Insurance Committee, we're making a recommendation to the Board of Trustees to award to Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas the stop-loss reinsurance for the fixed cost as specified in the packet, and at that particular individual stop-loss limit. I want to also clarify that Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas is our current provider of stop-loss reinsurance, and they're also our current, as far as the regular health insurance is concerned, they are the third-party administrator. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to Mr. Arias. I'm going to stop sharing this document. I'm going to allow him to go into more detail.
Thank you, Dr. Sorolla. Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent. My name is Lou Arias. I'm here today to talk to you about the stop-loss RFP and the results. And then once we finish with that, I will move into the health plan update. And the reason I wanted to reverse the order is that I think it'll make more sense if we do the stop-loss first and then move into the health plan update, because it does go into where the rates need to be set going into this next plan year. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I trust everyone can hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So as Dr. Sorolla mentioned, we did bid the stop loss. Now, your current stop loss is in fact with Blue Cross Blue Shield. If you remember last year when we did the bid, the RFP, we awarded the third-party administrator to Blue Cross Blue Shield from UHC, as well as the stop loss insurance. And so going into the next plan year, it is prudent for the district to look at the renewal that was provided by Blue Cross and then make a decision as to whether or not we're going to bid it. And so the decision was made to go ahead and bid it to see if we could get a better deal from Blue Cross and or a better deal from some of the carriers out in the marketplace. And so what I'm going to do is go through that particular process. If I go too fast, please let me know and I'll slow down. And so what you see here are the submissions, and this was for the best and final. And so Blue Cross Blue Shield, obviously, they did quote. We had a company called Berkeley, which is a third-party standalone stop-loss carrier, as well as Sun Life, who's also a standalone stop-loss carrier, and Voya ReliaStar, again, a standalone stop-loss carrier. To the right of that, we did put what their rating is, and we put down at the bottom a key so that you could see what that equates to as far as their solvency. We do this because we want to make sure that when we are showing you the stop-loss carriers, that we are only recommending or wanting to work with those that have an A rating or better, and that's for the district's protection. None of these stop-loss numbers that you will see going forward have any commissions loaded in. So there's no commissions for any agents, and of course Gallagher never receives commissions because we are on a consulting basis, on a fee basis. So here's what we have for the best and final offer. I didn't put the actual original submission. What we did do is ask the carriers, and we put here what the difference between their original submission was and their best and final. Blue Cross said that there was no change from their original quote. What that says is when they submitted their initial proposal, that was in fact their best and final offer. And so when we asked for best and final, they said, you have it. We put our best foot out on the table the first time around. The remaining carriers, Stealth with Berkeley, Voya ReliaStar, their original submission had illustrative numbers only. They were asking for additional claims information before they would firm or qualify their proposals as firm. So when we did the best and final, we did obtain an additional month's worth of claims and sent that out. And so in return from Sun Life, well, actually, they all submitted their proposals back. Sun Life went ahead and submitted 2 different proposals. They submitted a proposal that includes no new lasers with a 50% rate cap on the 2nd year. Is everyone here familiar with what a laser is? The district used to have lasers going back to UHC. Do I need to explain what a laser is?
Yes, can you please explain?
Sure. So you guys currently take the risk on the first $300,000 on each individual. And so the quotes we requested for the individual stop loss limit to be $300 for each individual. In this case, when a company says they're going to laser, that means that they will take the $300,000, the district will take the first $300,000 of risk, and then after that, the insurance company, the reinsurance company will then kick in and start paying those claims or reimbursing the district. But if they laser somebody out, they can identify somebody as a high-cost claimant and say, this person, we're not willing to take the risk after $300,000. We're only willing to take the risk after, and then they give a number, $600,000, $1 million, which means the district would pay that amount before the reinsurance kicks in. Or they can exclude that person altogether, which means the district would pay all costs for that person. There would be no stop loss limit. Going back to UHC, the first year that you were with them, you did have at least 4 lasers on there. The second year, you did not have any lasers. Respondents had lasers on there, including Blue Cross Blue Shield, but on the best and final, they removed those lasers. So what Sun Life is saying is, on one of their proposals, they're saying they will not, they will take the business and they guarantee that there'll be no new lasers going into year 2, and they guarantee that they won't raise the rate more than 50%. The second Sun Life proposal that they provided is a firm proposal, and they did not laser anyone. They're saying we will cover everybody at the 300,000 stop loss limit, and so it's a firm proposal. The Berkeley quote includes 2 lasers, and they identify the claimant not by name but just by a number to 600,000, and then claimant 2. Oops, I'm sorry. If I can get back there. Claimant number 2. I need to move my. There we go. Claimant number 2 at 525,000. They're also saying if claimant number 2 receives a transplant, that they'll increase that laser to $1 million. When you look at Voya also submitted their proposal as firm, but they also submitted 2 lasers on those same 2 claimants, $1 million each. And so when they laser somebody out, that means that on those particular claimants, the district will pay, in one case, up to $600,000 and $525,000 or $1 million before the insurance kicks in. So they didn't laser them out completely; they just lasered them out. Now, what you will see is when they do that, they typically will give you a reduction in your premium because they're not taking the risk on those folks after $300,000. And this will make more sense when you see the side-by-side comparison lasers and the premium. So we typically put out on the stop loss specs the current ISL level, which is at $300,000, which is what you have today. We asked them to match that. We also asked them to give us an option for a $350,000 ISL deductible and a $400,000 ISL
for computer. And I was trying to get her to run from there. You had a call.
So here's what it looks like on the executive summary for the $300,000 ISL level. So we have the current Blue Cross exhibit up top. We have the renewal with the appropriate networks, and then the stop loss carriers. I'd like to focus our attention because those numbers up top are what the costs are. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Do you by any chance have how many claimants we had at this $300 deductible for our school district this past school year?
Yes, ma'am, I do have it. After we do this exercise, I have all the dollar amounts where you can see your large claimants. Let me tell you, I think I don't have it pulled. It's on my second set of slides, ma'am. But you did have, you do have some folks that did hit that.
Yeah, because it would be interesting to know, okay, I know this would be the cost, but how many did we have that actually hit that target? I guess.
We actually went through that exercise, ma'am, when we were looking or considering where the committee asked, well, what if we did a $350,000 in exchange for a lesser premium? And then we looked at how many people today have exceeded that amount. So if you had 2 people, you would take on an additional $50,000 per person. That's $100,000.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. I think we did look at that already, but
Correct.
I think, yeah, I think I do remember from the work.
Yeah,
Yep.
I saw that.
So what I want to focus on is, if you can see my cursor, is this bottom area, and I'll go over the Blue Cross current, the renewal, and then the other stop loss carriers that submitted. So the current Blue Cross individual stop loss level is set at $300,000, as we talked about. Their total fixed cost, this is the premium. This is the premium that they're charging for that insurance. It's $2.2 million. The next number is where they expect your claims to hit based on the claims history. And it's at $14.3 million. The next number, which is the 16.5, that's the maximum. That's the worst case scenario. That's your aggregate insurance. So they're saying if your plan starts, as soon as the district pays out $16.5 million, then you have aggregate insurance and they start paying the rest of it for the rest of the plan year. So this is your absolute worst case scenario, which is what we funded to for this plan year and made those drastic changes to the plan so that the plan would pay for itself without having any worries about underfunding. Because the previous year, before we came on, you'll recall that your plans were a lot richer, but you were underfunded and were carrying over a large deficit. I think I had to make up for 23%. On top of that, we didn't want to make any changes to your contributions to both the district and the employees last year. So that's why we funded to the max. The proposal was firm last year. So let's look at the renewal. The same $300,000 specific deductible. Their premium is going to go up to 2.443 as opposed to 2.244. Their expected claims, and this includes the premium for the insurance and your fees for the administrative cost. Expected claims is 17.5. The maximum, again, all in, is 20,300,000. It is firm. And so it's showing the increase there of 198,000 above current from the premium, and your renewal was 8.84%. What we're seeing in the stop loss market is trend is running at about 9 to 12%. So you did get a favorable renewal from Blue Cross Blue Shield at 8.4. Now, granted, they know exactly the prognosis and diagnosis and have the ability to project forward because they are, in fact, your current stop loss carrier. So they have the best picture or the best expected claim number that we could go by because they have all that information.
So Lou, the fixed cost dollar change over current under Blue Cross Blue Shield that has nothing, is that supposed to be a 0? At the top, current
at the top.
Shield. Yeah, right here, the fixed cost dollar change over current, should that be 0?
Well,
Because
this here is your current. So
you don't have a number yet? Basis.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, is the next one supposed to be 0 also? The
this
one
here?
No, the one to the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. It didn't. For some reason, it didn't go in there, and that dash stayed in there. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So that's the Blue Cross renewal. And again, we want to focus on this here, which is the premium, and we want to focus on these claim numbers. And then, of course, you're also going to want to look at here because this is what the difference between your premium and today is. So when we go to Berkeley, remember Berkeley said that they were going to laser. They have 2 lasers. So they're going to say $300,000 and they're going to charge $2.3 million. They're saying they're expecting claims to be at 19.8, much higher than today and certainly higher than what Blue Cross is saying. And your maximum exposure there, they're saying they won't kick in until after 23 million. So much higher there. Now, their cost over the fixed over today is only $63,000, and it's only 2.85. But remember, that's because they're not taking the risk after 300,000 on these 2 people. They're saying they'll do it only after 525 and 600,000 and 1 million if one of them has a transplant. So when you've got carriers that are saying no lasers, these here, I don't think for the amount of money are anything that the district should consider, because this puts you at it puts you at additional risk, not just for this, but for those lasers. If we go to Sun Life, Sun Life is also proposing 300,000. Now their premium is only 1.8 million, but their expected claims is 19.7. So it's less than the Berkeley, but it is higher than Blue Cross. Their maximum is also 23 million, which is it's the same, a little bit more than Berkeley and more obviously than Blue Cross. They don't have lasers. It would save you 383,000 in premium only, or 17.8% over current. Now let's stop right there, because this looks like, hey, let's take a look at this. So this is a reduction in premium. But when we look at the claims that they want us to fund to, where they think claims are going to hit, they're guessing at 19.7. And Blue Cross is at 17.5. The other thing I want you to take notice is, even though these fixed costs, even though this looks like $383,000 is a lot of money, your premium for your stop loss is only 10% of your total claim cost. So yes, it's $300,000, but it's a small piece of your pie when it comes to the overall expense. Your claims are 84% of the total cost. And so I just brought that to the committee's attention, so when they're looking at the savings, that they're also looking at where the claims need to be, because that is really where the rubber hits the road, because you guys pay claims. The next one is Voya. Voya also had 2 lasers. They're saying at 2.1 million, their expected is at 19 million. Worst case scenario, 22.9, so just under 23 million. But they have those 2 lasers. And they're 5.9% under current. Okay? The next screen I'm going to go to just identifies each carrier, and it kind of breaks it down so that you can see that these numbers that I put on that previous sheet, where they came from. And you do the math and you add them up, and you don't think we just made them up. Full transparency. So we pulled them off these worksheets, and we're showing you where those numbers came from. And then we do the same thing for the other 3, because I couldn't fit all 4 on one page. Now, if I go to the next one, and I'll go through these a little bit faster. If I go through these, this is the same exercise, but instead of 300,000, this is 350,000. So, Dr. Valdez, this is the question you asked earlier about how many people hit. And if we had 2 and we went to 350, you would actually end up paying more. You'd pay 50,000 more on each person, so that would be 100,000. The savings would be 144, but you're going to pay $100,000 more before they came. So this would really be 44,000.
Right.
Just taking the additional risk. And so I went ahead and put those here. I don't think, based on where we are today, and again, we put the information out, we had the discussion with the committee. I did spend a lot of time on the 350, and then we went through the same exercise. Here's where the numbers came from, so that you know that we're being fully transparent, that we didn't pull those numbers off another grid. This is the grid that we pulled those numbers to make that summary. And then we did the same thing on the $400,000 limit. And so after we went through that entire exercise, I'm going to go back. Once we went through that entire exercise, I stayed on the phone. I answered some additional questions. The questions varied between the premium and the difference in the expected claims. Because really, like I said, even though this looks really good, I don't want you to ignore the fact that the claims are higher. And this only represents 10% of your total cost. The actual claim represents about 84% of your total cost. And so once I answered all the questions, the committee went ahead and excused me. They went ahead and scored it according to their scorecards. And then I was notified that their recommendation to the board for the RFP going into the next plan year was to remain at the $300,000 ISL level. They didn't want to move it up to 350 or 400, and to award it to Blue Cross because they had because of the claims factor that they're at 17.5, and this is really where you base your rates on because you're covering your claims. Does anybody have any questions on the RFP part?
Yeah, yes, Lou. Can you go back and say that slide before, please?
This one here?
No, the one that, well, I mean, doesn't matter which one, because we'll kind of cover the same data that I want to ask. On the combined expected claims funding and then the combined maximum claims funding, are those numbers true today based on the data that we had of expected claims this year? And what was the maximum that we had this year as well, combined?
Great question, and you'll see that on some of the other documents that I'm going to provide. But so this last year, right, when we switched over to Blue Cross, in order to keep the plan above board, if you recall, last year around this time, and Mrs. Cancino can probably tell you better than I can, around June or July, the district had to put in an additional, I think it was $2 million from the general fund into the health plan, because we were running behind. And so we decided going into the RFP, and once we selected the winner, we selected Blue Cross because they came in with the lowest expected and maximum claims, that for year one, that we would fund to the max, and then change the plans so that they would be funded to that dollar amount for year one.
Well, I think that's a dual thing. Yeah, we had to fund to the max, but that is not the approach we want to follow. The approach we want to follow, fund to the max, but reduce expenditures.
Understood. And I'm talking strictly year one because I needed to get you guys back on track to where the plan paid for itself. I have a totally different strategy that I communicated with the district going into this new year about funding, and it is not going to be funding to the max. Because you are correct. And so when I show you those slides where it compares this year to last year with United, and why we're choosing to fund to expected this year as opposed to the max, and it'll make sense.
Luke, I've got a question, and before I forget, because this is a lot of information that we got, and it's unfortunate that we got a lot of it 2 hours ago, which makes it very hard for us as a board, because first of all, your information is complex, not easy to read and understand.
Yes, ma'am.
But I have a question. I know that the RFQs were written specifically so that there would be no brokers and no commission. So who's going to do it then for free?
Well, they're not doing it for free. So the brokers, there is no commission built into this. This is Blue Cross's stop loss, and even if it was a third-party stop loss, the stop loss carriers, in this case Blue Cross to Blue Cross, or if it was Sun Life to Blue, they communicate back and forth with each other. There's no need for a broker to be involved on the stop loss because there's really no work to do. It's the two carriers exchanging information. The reason.
Okay, so then your answer is, because I want to make sure that I understand this, so then your answer is that Gallagher will not be charging any commission for this.
Yes, ma'am. We do not charge.
These costs are not hidden somewhere else where we're not aware of.
No, ma'am. The RFP, as quoted, was requested net of commissions. So none of these rates here, regardless of the carrier, has commissions built into it, and commissions are not going to be paid out to Gallagher or to any other agent.
Okay, so whatever was paid before, whatever work was done to pay, then that's gonna be done free by Gallagher.
Well, Gallagher does the analysis.
No, it's a yes or no question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
There will be no charges. Okay, that's what
It's
I wanted to
included
know.
in our fee, in our consulting fee.
you answered the question.
Okay. So that was the recommendation made to the board today. I'll go ahead and stop there. I think if anybody has any questions, and then I guess there needs to be action taken on this item, because the next set of slides, I'm going to be looking at your claims history, where we are today in comparison to where you were this time last year, so that Dr. Valdez, you can see that the cost did, in fact, was reduced in comparison to where you were last year. And then we're going to start, and then we move into the discussion about where funding, where rates need to be, what we recommend the rate to be. There's two scenarios. And so that we can go ahead and start the open enrollment, because that actually needs to start fairly quickly.
Lou, and I guess maybe this would be more a question for legal or maybe the superintendent. Is there any way, Mr. Superintendent, and maybe Tony, that in the future, whenever we have presentations from the insurance, that they are also adhered to follow our, I guess, our procedures where the backup is submitted to the board members at least 5 to 7 days in advance? Because we did quite a bit of information just like 2 hours ago.
Sure, we can make that possible, Dr. Valdez, not a problem. And
that way,
for the delay.
that way we have any questions, we can call you or send you an email, and then we can assist you have such a long discussion.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So just one more question before we continue. I know we might have it on the other slides, I'm not sure, but.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, one question I had, who's going to service the account once we're complete? And if they service the account, once it's serviced, what does it cost to us?
Okay, good question. So you currently have Arthur J. Gallagher as the consultant, and so we do the strategy and everything that you guys see me do, including the RFP. You also have 3 local agents that handle the ancillary lines of coverage, which is your dental, your vision, the life, disability, and all the worksite products. They're also the agents on the medical. And so historically, there were fees built into the admin fees on the medical to help subsidize the work that those agents did to do open enrollment. Last year, that was removed from the admin fees. We took those out. And so the way the agents were compensated is they're currently compensated, and I got to be careful here because I don't want to speak on their behalf, but they're compensated based on the commissions that they generate on the ancillary lines of coverage, the dental, the life, the vision, the disability, and the work site. In addition to that, the RFP was also written as such that there is money built in to the plan. Blue Cross built in $75,000 so that they can do an open enrollment every year, and Blue Cross pays them directly, but it's built into the price of the plan. It's not Donna's money, it's Blue Cross's money. And so that is how they're compensated for the open enrollment, and then the regular day in and day out servicing of the account via the fees or the commissions that are generated from the ancillary lines of coverage. Did I answer your question, sir?
Yeah, you did. I was just curious if the ancillary covers those if they didn't have access, I guess, then that's the reason why they're being covered like that. Is that, or is it not built in like you just stated?
Well, it's built into those ancillary lines of coverage, into their fees on the medical side, rather than building it into the admin as a separate fee where it's actually Donna paying that money and then Blue paying it out. We had Blue use their money. We said, hey, we need an allowance for enrollment once a year so that Donna can hire enrollers to come in, and this would be your agents. And so just like last year, they cut a check to the agents so that they can come on and do open enrollment, and they'll do the same thing this year.
Okay, super. Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before I move on to, I think you guys,
We need to take action on number.
correct.
Right, on this item. Yeah, are there any questions from any board members on this item? Are we ready to approve or,
I make the motion to approve.
okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Mr. Guerrero?
Hold on. In favor?
Alicia?
Favor.
Mrs. Watts?
Dr. Valdez, I think there are some technical difficulties here with the connection. Ms. Watts is really wanted to connect, but I think we're working on helping her out with the technology because I think something wrong with the technology.
Okay, so
And
I
Dr.
also,
Mary signed on too.
oh, okay, Dr. Mary, do you also vote? What is your vote on this item?
Dr. Mary, you're in mute.
Dr. Mary?
I found it. Favor.
And I also vote in favor, motion carries. The next item now is going to be, I guess, the update on the self-funded medical plan.
Yes, ma'am. So once again, you guys typically see me come in and do this quarterly, where I show you where you are every quarter. I currently have claims through June. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the scenarios where I show you where your plan is, both plans combined, how it's running in comparison to what you're funding, and also in comparison to where you were last year, to demonstrate that when we went out to bid, that in fact the cost of care was reduced through Blue Cross's network because they had a significantly higher discount than United Healthcare for those claims. And then what I'm going to do is then I'm going to go into, now that we know who the stop loss vendor is, I'm going to go into where the recommendation to set rates is and what the options are to the district. So let me go ahead and, so plan overview, I'm going to go over the summary, the plans themselves. I'm going to go over the summary of the needed rate actions, and there you have two options. I'm going to go over those options, and then we'll talk about next steps, which is open enrollment. So again, I'm just showing you the benefits that you have today. You have the medium plan and the high plan. Most of the employees, the majority of the employees are on the medium plan. And then you have folks that are willing to pay more out of their pocket to buy up to a lower deductible plan, which is the high plan. So this is the coverage that you have today. So just a quick little summary. So through June of 2020, Donna moved from United Healthcare to Blue Cross into the ESI for your pharmacy effective 9/1 last year of 2019. The district and employee contributions remained the same. Last year, we didn't change the contributions to the employees, and we didn't change the contribution that Donna contributes, which is the 505. We left it the same, but we had to make those drastic plan changes because we also wanted to fund to the max for that first year, just so that we didn't have to put in any additional money and it would not be over budget. The plan changes were made to offset that rate action. It was about 23% last year. So through June, and this does include your United Healthcare runout, the plan is running at about 99.7% of budget. That's of the max. And that's going to all come into play here in a little bit, and you'll see how that works out. You have two large claimants. So, Dr. Valdez, we have two large claimants that are above $300,000. So the district paid up to $300,000, and then your reinsurance, was this Blue Cross Blue Shield, is picking up the rest because those folks have met their individual stop loss limit.
Okay.
The medium plans are running significantly better than the higher plan on a per employee per month basis. No surprise there. The majority of the plans are on the medium plan. The ones that want to buy up to a richer plan typically do so because they're typically the ones that are utilizing it. They have a reason to buy up. Your medium plan is running at about $382.51 per employee per month. The benchmark is $499.45, so that's about 76% of that $499.45. Now your high plan is running at $919.11, or 184% of that $499 plan. So your high plan is driving some costs. But again, those people do pay for it, and not surprisingly, they're using it. So here's where we start looking at the numbers that you guys are used to seeing from me every quarter. So at the top here, this is your membership, total number of subscribers. This is belly buttons. This means this includes dependents. This is all plans combined. We take your claims month by month and your pharmacy month by month. We also, and then we add those together minus any stop loss reimbursements. Then we add all your fees, which would be your administrative fees, and then your stop loss premium, which you pay for insurance. We add those together. That comes up with the total plan cost. And then we bump it up again, which is the budgeted cost, that's your plan cost, on up against the actual claims that come in. And so through June, so for June, you had a deficit of $2,700. May, you had another deficit of $11,000. In April, you were at you had a surplus of $18,000.
Mr. Arias.
Yes, sir.
I think your screen is froze or something, because we're not seeing what you're seeing.
Yeah, we're not seeing the pricing.
Oh, you don't see the grid, the big, it says financial monitor report?
You want to stop?
No.
You need to stop sharing, then share again, whatever you need.
Oh, okay. You know what? You're right. It says your screen paused. Okay, let me do this again. Apologize. I'm glad you told me. Thank you. How about now?
Yes.
Oh, wait, that's the wrong one.
That's one.
That's the wrong one.
You need a bag, bro? No, you need to get your license.
Okay, how about now, sir?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm focusing on the bottom lines right here, if you can see my cursor.
Yes.
This is going to show your actual cost by month, and this is what was budgeted that month. These are the contributions, both by the district and the employees. The next line is what the actual claims were, and it's by month.
Mr. Arias.
Yes, sir.
Whether you can make that screen just a tiny bit bigger?
Let me see if I can get it bigger. Did it get bigger or no?
It's about the same.
Let me, how about if I do this mode, does this help?
Yes, that helps.
That does.
Okay. So I'm just gonna, I'll go with this mode and I'll just move it over when I need to so that you can see the numbers. So I'm looking at these here, actual cost versus budgeted for starting for all months through June. And so if I move this over, we're sitting now for claims through June at a $32,000, $635 surplus. So our plans are paying for themselves and then some. And this is, again, based on funding to the max. If we look at where we were last year with UHC through June, you were at a negative $160,000 for the month of June, $419,000 for the month of May, and $343,000 in arrears for the month of April. Your costs there to date were $14.2 million. Today, we are at
12 million.
12 million too, or a difference of $1.9 million, just under $2 million ahead of where we were last year. And again, that is because we funded to the max so that we dig ourselves out of the hole and we made those plan changes.
And we have to there.
Okay.
Okay, so right now up to June, what you're saying is that our expenditures are $1.9 million less
Than last year.
than what was budgeted.
Well, it's 1.9 million less than last year's numbers.
Than last year's expenditures.
Right. To what's budgeted, you're $32,000 ahead. Against budget.
Yeah, and that's current though.
That's current.
Ms. Cancino, are those basically the same numbers that you're getting as well when you run your numbers? I thought our savings was a little bit bigger than that. Ms. Cancino.
No, ma'am, they're not the same because what we did is, and part of for our fiscal year and our plan year don't run the same way. So
That's
what
true.
we able to
That's
do
true.
is what we get billed in September, which are
Right.
actual costs for August, we push back to the previous year. So you'll see
That
that
is
actually
correct.
in our financials, it's looking better than what this report shows.
Okay, correct. Okay, so I guess maybe my question is, looking at it the way you're looking at it, has there been a decrease in expenditures from the previous year?
Yes, but I would not base any decision based on the financials, only because we do push back that 1 month, or not necessarily the month, but the expenditures that are actually in September. We push, we accrue them back. So you really can't compare when you do the financials. I think it's cleaner when you compare these reports from from plan year to plan year.
Right. I guess maybe what I'm trying to go by is from you is, will we have to continue to subsidize this count this year? We won't, right?
This year we won't, ma'am. If you go back to last year's, you'll see that we did put out a lot of money last year. We transferred out a huge amount of money, and some of it is part of some of this cost from United that were in September. So that reason is why you will see a decrease this year. But then I don't know how many I'm going to now have to accrue this year from United in September going back to August. I anticipated being a lot less than what we did last year, only because of just the way the plan is running compared to United.
Right. Okay.
Judy, are we exceeding the $5 million amount that we were supplementing the program?
I don't anticipate having to supplement it this year, or not to the extent that we did last year.
It was $5 million last year, right?
We were doing about, we were averaging just below 4 million, and last year I believe it was below 3 million, or close to the 3 million mark.
Okay. But we had anticipated and budgeted for around $4 million, right?
No, I believe it was 2 million. In previous years, I think there was a year, I don't know how long ago, maybe 5 years ago, where I think it was close to the $6 million that you're referencing.
Right. Yes.
Yes. In the past, it has been that high.
Yeah, because I remember that was the $5-point-something million was what we had to inject into the system in order for it to balance out.
Yes, and I believe that was maybe, I think it's around 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and that's when the district, the year after the district increased its employer contribution to the 505 that we currently have.
Right. Okay, and we're still going to be funding at the 505 rate, right, Mr.
Correct.
Yes. Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, once I get through the plan comparisons, I will show you what the recommendation is from Gallagher, and then what happens if you just keep it the same.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Yes,
so to answer your question there, Val, Mr. Guerrero, the aggregate numbers are about 5 million, with a difference today, showing today's dollars, obviously. But if you look at last year's difference of the 4-point-something that Ms. Cancino just mentioned, it would be about $5 million in savings, almost 6.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so this would be both plans combined, the high and the medium. Now let's look at them individually. So I want to scroll up here just so that you can see that this is for the medium plan. Same amount of information. We have April, May, and June added to this. Your medium plan, if you remember the previous slide, is running only 76% of the actual cost for both plans. So you had a surplus of 1.1 in April, 1.1, almost 1.2 in May, 1 million in June. So the medium plan is doing extremely well. It's only paid out total expenditures of $9 million. Last year, with UHC, to this point, you had paid out $11.3 million through the same time period. So again, you can see the difference in the amount of discounts or the deal strength that Blue Cross had with their networks over UHC. And so it does reduce the cost to the district. I will do the same thing on the high plan. Now remember, the high plan, as I mentioned earlier, is running a lot higher than in comparison to where it needs to be. You only have 206 people or 413 when you put dependents. These are the folks that bought up. So if you look at these numbers here, May you had a surplus of 233,000. June, a surplus of 240,000. I'm sorry, I forgot April. Just under 200,000. So you've paid out, this plan has paid out about $1.9 million total cost. This time last year, this plan paid out $2.8 million. So the last year's plan was also running high. The buy-up plans typically will run higher than your medium plans because, again, people will buy up for a reason. And so the difference between last year on this high plan, it's not as significant because it's still running pretty high, but it's just under $1 million, just under $900,000 at $877 in comparison to last year. Here is where I'm going to make this a little bit smaller, but not too much smaller because there's less information. This is your top claimants by diagnosis and the number of claimants in each one. So cancers are number 1. Then you have diseases of the nervous system. And then this here, number 3, is a catch-all. It's a myriad of a bunch of different diagnoses. But these are your top 10. And then it has the number of actual claimants. You'll notice that category 3 and 4, like I said, it's kind of a catch-all, especially 3. That's why you have so many that fall into that. It's not as specific as some of these others here. I will tell you that on the pharmacy side, the top 3 indications are cancer, inflammatory, and diabetes. And so this makes up 71% of your total medical claims. So you've probably heard me say this before. Typically about 10 to 20% of the population is the driver, is about 80% of the driver of the costs. And so your top 10 claimants are the ones that are driving the cost for the health plan. Here's what we, yes, sir.
A quick question on that one piece. Areas that we as a district can affect, the one that I see on there is second to the last, which is poisoning and injury. If you move the slide a little bit over, yeah, there you go. On injury and poisoning, I think those are the two or one of the areas that we can actually influence based on our own risk in the workplace.
You're correct. And so what we can do is, this one's kind of tricky because if it's work related, the spend shouldn't be here. It should be on workman's comp.
Period.
And so what happens is when we see, or when Blue Cross sees a diagnosis that comes in, let's say an injured back, or a concussion, they will pen the claim and ask the employee. They'll send a letter and say, was this in relation to an accident and did it occur at work? And if they respond to it saying yes, then it's denied and telling them to go through their workman's comp program. And so the ones that go through the health plan are accidents or diseases that fall outside of not on the job. We shouldn't see any workman's comp claims running through the health plan. That's a separate program.
Mr. Arias,
Sir.
So I was looking at this where it says respiratory diseases of respiratory system. Are we, is that overlapping into this COVID-19 epidemic right now that's going on, that we're seeing a lot of additional claims?
Well, so that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. If you recall back in March, I'm sorry, when I did your first quarter, I had given you some information. I said we ran some COVID impact studies and we used Donna's claims. And what we were seeing, and it is holding true, and you'll see here in a little bit, is that because of the shelter in place that took effect back in March, and of course it's been lifted, but people are still kind of staying in. And if I'm not mistaken, I think the Valley had like a voluntary shelter in place by the county judge. People are still maybe not going to the doctor. I had mentioned that you were going to see either the cancellation or postponement of the non-COVID claims, meaning the non-essential claims. And so you'll start to see those numbers go down. So the ones that you see here, if they are going, then these could be something like pneumonia or other respiratory systems. I have not seen, because Blue Cross typically notifies us of the number of COVID claims, I have not seen a dramatic impact to Donna's health plan due to COVID-19. I've actually seen the reverse, is that you're getting a more favorable, only because employees are canceling or postponing until the pandemic is somewhat behind us and they reschedule some of these non-essential surgeries. Now, these folks here, sir, I would argue that a lot of these folks here, but maybe not the last two, but especially the respiratory system, number 7, would probably be more at risk. I'm not a doctor, but probably would be more at risk for serious COVID-19 complications if they did in fact get the virus because of the respiratory problems that they already have. I mean, people with asthma are more susceptible to a negative outcome on the COVID-19 than people who don't have asthma. So here's where we start. So now I showed you comparison to last year, where we are. I'm going to now talk about and address the issue of the contribution as to whether the district needs to kick in more than the 505, and or do the employees need to start kicking in, or what do we do going forward based on now we know who the stop loss carrier is, and now we have a comparison of where we are as far as claims. I'm going to go back to the original view because I think these can be viewed a little bit easier on the slides. So we worked up a renewal back in March, because that's when we started the whole conversation of what are we going to do for budget. And so we worked these up with claims through March. We made some assumptions. The medical trend was running at about 5.9 and the pharmacy at 8.5. We went ahead and took the pharmacy rebates, which you guys get through ESI, $695,000, and that's on expected claims. We included the stop loss results that we just went over, and that's why I reversed course on what doing the stop loss first, is that we went ahead and used those who was going to get the stop loss included in these projections. And then where it says the removal of the on-site rep, you heard me earlier where we talked about that there were fees in the admin that were related to paying for the agents. That was all taken out, and so that's not in the admin fees. I wanted to make sure that you guys knew that. Here's what we are recommending. It's Gallagher's recommendation based on what we see for claims through March. And I'm saying March on purpose because I'll tell you why here in a little bit. So the rate action needed to hit the expected claims, our new expected claims target. We don't need to fund to the max again because we did that the first year and it's levelizing. It's paying for itself. So now we get to fund to expected. In order to fund exactly to expected, we would need 2.6% added into the plan. This would include rebates into consideration, and these are projections used through March. Now, I just showed you numbers for April, May, and June. When I take those numbers for April, May, and June, they got better than where you were sitting at March. So what that says is we always recommended, like to tell our clients, realistically, you need to put something into the plan every year to help catch up with trend. This up here. Oops, I'm sorry. This right here. You guys are looking at less than trend. We're not asking you to put in 7%. We're looking at 2.6. So you guys are coming in less than trend, and that's because we funded to the max last year. So you only need to do 2.6. That's our recommendation. You can comfortably leave your contributions the same at 505 and leave the employees' contributions exactly how they are, because the claims that came in for April, May, and June improved your standing since March. It would probably come in a little bit on the negative here, but I would never tell you guys to lower those. We need to stay the course where we're at, because eventually as the cost goes down, remember I told you this was like a 3-year play, where year 1 was to catch up, year 2 and 3 you need to let it play out. You can potentially develop a surplus so that you're no longer in arrears and you have a little bit of money so that you can start using as reserves. But we're recommending 2.6. But you can, if the district says, you know what, we're going to leave it exactly the way it is at 505 and leave the employees the same, you can be assured and feel comfortable that that will cover expected claims. Now, I'm just showing you this because I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't. But if we were going to fund to the max, which we don't need to do today, and we certainly couldn't afford to do it at 24%, no school district would. Very rare that school districts fund to the max when they're running fairly well, because they're not going to hit that number. And remember, this funding to the max is basically last year's the expected, and you add a 20% corridor. And certainly in your case, your claims aren't going to run 20% higher than they ran last year. But we have to show it to you. So if you wanted to fund to the max again, you would have to infuse another 24%. Now you're talking major dollars, but we're not recommending that you fund to the max. We did that the first year. We felt the pain. We are starting to level out. Your renewal came in less than trend. We recommend this, but you certainly don't have to do it if you want to keep everything the same. I want to show you what that looks like. We're going to go quickly here. This is showing the district at 505. If we were still doing this in March, without the rate action, you would need an additional $421,000. You would be over budget if you hit expected. But because we plugged in April, May, and June, you don't need this. It's not going to be 2.6. It's actually going to be less than, it's a negative. But we would recommend that you stay the course at 505 and to the employees. Here's what it would look like if we were going to go to the max. If we were going to fund to the max and the district stayed at 505, we would need another $3.8 million to fund to the max, but we don't need to do that. You're certainly not going to pay 20% more this year than you did last year, because we demonstrated, comparing to UHC, that your claims are running lower than you have in previous years. So let's look at what those rates would look like. So if, again, Donna can make no changes, or if Donna does not want to increase their contribution of 505, here's what the rates would look like for the employees if they had to pay the 2.6 into the plan. So today we have 2,161. The employees' contributions today equate to about 3.1 million, but the district pays the other 13. So the district pays the bulk of the contributions of the premium. So if the district stays at 505, we need 16.3 because I'm taking out rebates. 2.6. This is what the rates would look. New rates if the employees picked up the 2.6. Now, because they're paying the lower amount, this actually is 13% because they're paying the smaller amount, and that makes up for the 421,000. This is what the deductions would look like. So the employee only on a medium plan would go to from $25 to $28.38. On the high plan, it would go from $112 to $127. And then you can see what it does. I'll go to the higher numbers. So you have a lot of employee children. It would go from 321 to 365. Here it would go to the next highest number of employee children, 432 to 490. This is if you wanted to take the recommendation to go to 2.6%, but you certainly don't have to. I'm going to show you these numbers anyway because I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't, but these aren't going to be pretty because they're funding to the max, which we certainly don't need to do. This would mean we need to come up with an additional 3.8 million to expected. The employees' rates would go up significantly, 124% to get that 3.8 million. Again, we don't need a fund to the max, but I'm showing it to you anyway. The $25 would go to 56. The 112 would go to 252, and then I'll just touch on this one: the 321 to 723, and the 432 to 972. Certainly not doable, and you don't need to. There's no reason for you all to fund to the max this year, because like I said, you're not going to pay 20% more than you did last year. So the next thing, now that we've done this, is determine the rate action, and then implement these rates so that we can start the open enrollment process. When I spoke to the superintendent and Dr. Sorolla and David Mosqueda on the Donna team, we talked about those scenarios, and I don't want to speak for the school district, but it sounded to me, and then I'll let you all make the determination. It sounded to me that the desire was for the district to leave the contributions exactly where they are. And like I said, because your plan is improving, you don't need to do the 2.6. We would recommend you do just as a safety precaution, but you certainly don't have to. And so I'll leave it up for discussion.
So Lou, let me just take you a little bit further back. You don't have to go back on the slides, but going back to the cost and what the district puts in for the employee, which is 2/3 of what a cost would be. If the trend would be in comparison to other districts, I guess that would be the best way to do this. In comparison to other districts, what would be their contributions to their employees? Because I know some schools pay a little bit more, or at least employees pay a little bit more on the insurance side to share that cost. Because the burden, obviously, right now is on the school district.
Correct.
2/3.
So what I'm seeing, and of course I'm doing this exercise with a few other districts in the Valley, I am seeing school districts being hit with trend, anywhere upwards of 9 to 12%. On the stop loss, and then the rate action equates to about 8 to 9%. Now, you guys are below trend at 2.6. Now, in relation to the contribution at 505, I do have some school districts that are contributing as high as 719, 640. They're contributing larger amounts, but that could be for various reasons. I have one district that was also with UHC, very similar to you all, same story, and we recently moved them to Blue Cross. They're not going to have to fund those amounts because they simply won't have to pay higher dollars for those same claims. We're seeing trend this year. If you remember when I said that COVID-19 is kind of having the reverse impact that we thought it was we thought it was going to have a negative impact to claims. It's actually caused some postponement and some cancellations temporarily, so claim trend is down. So people are getting trend right out the bat. That's just inflation. But because you guys funded to the max, we made some changes and your plans are leveling out. The nice thing, I mean, of course we would want to see this thing run flat, but you guys can do that and still feel comfortable. But we like, as your consultants, like to tell you to put something in the plan every year if you can. And we're saying 2.6 would be something that we would feel comfortable. But you certainly don't have to. But I am seeing other districts getting trend. I do have one other district that ran about where you're at, just a little bit less.
This item though is only an update, right? It's not an action item. It says
correct.
update on the self-funded medical plan.
Dr. Sorolla, I'll leave that up to you.
That's correct. It is an update, so it doesn't call for any action at this point.
But I have a question. Now, doesn't he have to start enrolling employees? Or does that pertain to the earlier item we voted on?
No, you do need to. We have your local agents are waiting to hear back either today or tomorrow as to what rate action or plan changes were recommended. And obviously, we're not making any plan changes. Now we just need to determine the course of the funding so that they can start the open enrollment.
Okay, I had another question. Now, in other school districts, I know that they, the insurances in the past have not, or the district insurance has not covered any of the family members, whereas we in the past would. Can you make any comments on that? I mean, because they would have complete coverage for the employee. I know Mercedes has always had a challenging insurance plan, and district employees had to pay a lot out of their own pocket.
That's a good point. So
WISD had good coverage for the employee only, whereas the spouse or family was so expensive that basically the district had no involvement in coverage for any of the dependents. Any comments on that as to how their plan is comparing to our plan?
yes, ma'am. So we are actually the consultants on Mercedes, and we recently did. And I'm only bringing them up because you brought them up, ma'am. They had 4 plans. And 2 plans were very similar to one another, and then the other 2 were extremely rich. And so they kind of have the same issue that you had before I came on, where you had some very rich plans but weren't paying for them, and which is why you had to bring in money from the general fund to play catch up. So what Mercedes decided to do this year is they eliminated one of those plans, one of the richer plans, because it was driving the cost. And so those folks will need to move into one of the other plans. To your point on contributions for family members, it is very, very rare that school districts subsidize any of the dependent costs to the employees. It's very, very rare. So unfortunately, it's subsidized heavily, or as much as they can, on the employees. And unfortunately, the employees have to pay their share without a subsidy from the district if they want to add dependents, which is why you find a lot of school districts don't have a lot of dependents enrolled.
Just I want to echo what Mr. Arias was talking about it. After having the conversation, look on these numbers, we feel, as the administration feels like the best route is to keep the rates and everything unchanged pretty much, so we can proceed. No changes to the plan. And again, that would help us really decide, make some even more decisions as we move forward, right? But I feel, the administration feels, and that the best route is to keep the plan as is, not to make any changes.
Any other questions?
Just for clarification, this is Ms. Cancino. So we don't need to have action on this item to say that we are not doing an increase on rates?
It wasn't written for discussion and possible action. It was just written as an update.
Okay.
I mean, correct, Tony?
That's correct. This is a no action item.
And so, if there's no more questions?
But we do, based on what Mr. Arias said, you know, I guess maybe we need to bring it back up, because we're at a point where a decision has to be made. And, you know, I mean, in my opinion, I think that after listening to Mr. Arias, the logical position would be to keep everything as is and move forward. But if it calls for board action, I don't know, we need to bring it up at ASAP.
I think we've got.
I don't think we require board action right now. We already voted on the insurance piece. The only modification would have been if we were to increase it, which we're not going to increase it, so it stays the same. The plan stays the same, and we're keeping right now Blue Cross Blue Shield. So, to your question, I don't think it requires board action. It's already stated in the contract that when we voted them in.
It would only require board action in the event that the district wanted to change the plan design.
Okay.
Okay, we're good.
Great.
Any other questions on this item from anybody? All right, then, thank you, Mr. Liu. I guess we'll move on to the item number 4. The request for approval of resolution authorizing payment of extracurricular stipends. Dr. Az.
Thank you, Dr. Valdez. And Dr. Sorolla, if you can discuss this item.
Yes, you approved the compensation plan earlier in the agenda. And in the compensation plan, there are some stipends that are outlined for, athletics and for other extracurricular activities. We know that with the situation with COVID-19, things are kind of precarious. We don't know, what's going to happen with these extracurricular and athletic activities. But the basis of this resolution is to provide the administration the authority to, in the event that these activities are canceled in the fall or the spring, to go ahead and pay these stipends as outlined in the compensation plan, with possibly some slight revisions to responsibilities in the case that these activities get canceled. But that is the basis for this resolution.
Any questions from any board members? Okay, so this one is, do I have a motion? If there's no questions.
What is the resolution? I was not clear on what the resolution was, Dr. Sorolla. The resolution that meaning that their insurance or the cost, if we're not to have any obviously sports, because I know that UIL has already stated that until further notice. So what is the resolution?
Well, with the resolution, and Mr. Torres, if you want to chime in, the resolution basically states that in the event that COVID-19 causes us to cancel, say, fall football or basketball or volleyball or any of the UIL events, that we are allowed to pay those stipends that are outlined in the compensation plan that have been paid historically to employees. But it basically gives us your permission to pay those stipends should those activities get canceled, and look at alternative responsibilities for those individuals who would receive those payments. So it's basically allowing us to pay those payments to those individuals who were identified to receive them should the activity get canceled because of COVID-19.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because UIL right now already stated that. If I'm not mistaken, they came out, I think last week, where the sports have been suspended. That's why the coaches met along with North. So
try it.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
And I have a question. Do these individuals realize that perhaps if their activities cancel, that they will be requested to do other activities? We don't want to, I'm just asking because we don't want to have any grievances regarding that misunderstanding.
We'll make sure that is communicated. I do know that within their, and most of these are contracted employees, most of them have within their contract that specification. Mr. Torres, I don't know if you want to chime in on that question.
That's correct. In addition, the additional reason why we brought forth this resolution is so that way the district isn't accused of gifting public funds. So this finds that a public purpose is being served by paying out these stipends in the event that extracurricular activities are canceled.
Okay. But I just wanted to make sure that each individual it'll be clear to that.
Yeah.
That because they just sign, sometimes they don't read the resolution,
Yeah. Dr. Mary will be sharing this information with them, obviously, but some of our staff members, for example, when it comes to athletics, right? They work after school, the coaching, attending games on Saturdays, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. No, I understand that. I just want to make sure that if they don't misunderstand that if it's canceled or those events are canceled, that they may be asked to do other duties within their skill sets.
Yes, of course. We will obviously share that information with them, but we all have that fine print, right? And assignment as what is it? as assigned by the supervisor. So we all have to do things sometimes above and beyond what's in our contract, just to help move our district and our students forward. Absolutely.
Right, okay. All right, thank you.
Can I bring something up real quick? Okay, we're gonna be paying stipends to coaches who, for whatever reason, the sport's been canceled. Okay, but then we have other teachers who are being asked to do, going, like you just said, going above and beyond, working from home, all these other things. And is there going to be, I mean, if we can pay stipends to coaches, we should be able to pay some type of stipends to these teachers who are going above and beyond and doing extra work. Or can we bring in these coaches and have them alleviate some of those duties?
Well, the coaches, sir, here's what happened. The stipends are written in the compensation plan, and if a staff member is supposed to get like a decrease in his or her I guess pay, we need to notify him 45 days before the first day of reporting back to work. To students instruction day.
Right.
So, we don't know, we cannot predict what will happen if we will have, let's say, when we'll have, football or basketball or cross country, whatever it is. We don't know when that'll happen. So if we didn't notify him 45 days, we're pretty much done. We have to pay him. The question is, if they didn't do the work, now we're gifting public funds. So we're going to be in another problem. So this will take care of that situation. And then what Dr. Mary is saying, if you're not going to coach, let's say football, can you assist with something else, right? And I think that's very fair. And I'm sure our staff totally understand that.
Exactly.
They might not be able to coach football, but we may ask them, for example, to assist with the registration, with distribution of Chromebooks to our students, with helping for a teacher when a teacher is out. So obviously, all those details we're working on it still, as far as what kind of help they will be providing. But definitely, I have no doubt that our staff, if we're going to ask them to do A, B, C, D, they're more than happy to do that. And we work obviously with our principals, and these stipends mainly at the secondary level, especially at the high schools. So we work with our high school principals and also the middle school principals.
Are those paid with their monthly check distributed over a semester, or are they all paid in one lump sum?
It depends, sir. It depends on the activity, if you will. So let's say if you're a football coach, you will get it. You get some during, and then I think the second part at the end. I don't remember exactly the timing, but if you, let's say, coaching a spring sport, then you will get that stipend in the spring. Does that make sense? It depends when is your activity. Let's say you're engaged with.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Plus, these stipends come specifically from the athletic budget. They're not coming.
Yeah. Well, athletics, we have a variety, right? Athletics, there are fine arts,
UIL activities.
UIL, academics, so there are a variety of stipends. We have we have all of those in our compensation plan.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from any other board members on this item? Okay. Do we have a motion?
Make the motion to approve.
Second, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, who seconded? Colonel? Me. Val, how do you vote?
Favor.
Dr. Mary and Val? I don't hear Val.
Muted, Val. He's unmuted.
Vote in favor.
Okay, Alicia?
Favor.
I also vote in favor. Motion carries. Going on now to governance, discussion, and possible action on student outcome goals and superintendent and board constraints. Dr. Azzi?
Thank you. And I thank you, Dr. Valdez. I know Ms. Reyna is still with us, right? And we would like to discuss the possible action on student outcome, discussion and possible action on student outcome goals and superintendent and board constraint. So Ms. Ray, and I don't know if you want to start the conversation. You want me to start it?
Yeah, well, you all know that this is, it's been shown that one of the most important behaviors that boards can exhibit is the both setting of student outcome goals and monitoring those. And so this is that continued work, the revisions of those goals, you all. And remember back, gosh, it was late last year where we had a workshop. So we're bringing that back forth, remembering that we as a board own the student outcome goals, and then the superintendent and the administration own the setting of the goal progress measures. So once we set and approve the student outcome goals, then they can go forth and really solidify the goal progress measures. Superintendent and Mr. Ghana, did you all have a visual that you wanted to show on where we're at most recently for the student outcome goals?
Yes. Let me just 1 second so I can pull it. Yes, absolutely.
And remembering that this work is informed by the changes made in House Bill 3 from this last year.
Yeah, I just want to add, echo that. I think initially in House Bill 3, what House Bill 3 asked the school district to do is to have these goals set up, for by August, right? August of this year. But because of COVID-19, TA provided some flexibility, and I think we have to the end of January 2021 to really adopt it. And also House Bill 3 are very specific as far as the type of goals. They're not just any random goals. And we're gonna go over these goals with you. So I don't know, I can, Ms. Ryan, I don't know if you want me to discuss it or.
Yeah, I guess what I would say, you all, is like none of this is going to look brand new because this is the discussions that we've had when we've discussed our goals. And so, yeah, so if you go to the first one, early elementary math proficiency goal.
Yep. So,
yeah. So Superintendent, why don't you talk about some of the work that you did with Dr. McMahon to think about the actual target. You all remember in our workshop, we had the superintendent, we said, okay, to figure out what the target is, we need to know what you think is necessary as far as resource allocation to get to that target. Knowing that if we set a higher target, we've got to allocate more resources to it, and what that relationship is. Do you want to, talk about that?
Absolutely. So with Mr. Rana and Dr. McMahon, we had a conversation and good discussions, and we worked on creating what's called a stretch goal and a bold goal, right? So those are, and then we have if we do what, just try to improve, like using what we have, not adding anything else, just working hard and trying to make it work. So the stretch goal, in this case, we looked at the state, where they were at 2017, 2018, and then 2019. Obviously 2020, we didn't take the STAR test, so we don't have that information. And then we looked at the region 1, where they were and 2017, 2018, 2019, and also we looked at our district. And so we created, again, a stretch goal was 47%, and then a bold goal is 55. So a bold goal is even more advanced. It looks almost like something that it's going to take us a couple of years to achieve, but it's going to require more resources and more help. And again, that's how we worked on it. We look at the trend, the stretch, and the bold goal. And again, we're looking at it from one year to another. And let me just tell you. So if we wanna get that stretch goal, we're gonna require maybe some more resources. Maybe getting more math coaches. Maybe we're gonna develop a math academy. Maybe we have to start also with the district early coordinator who can help assist supporting our teachers when it comes to math. Maybe some technology devices. maybe some more stipend to incentivize teachers to really excel in the math instruction, right? So that's the stretch goal. And then these are the resources I needed for a stretch goal. And then for the bold goal, obviously, whatever here in the stretch goal, but then we're gonna need maybe some more resources, some more help to make sure that we achieve that bigger goal, that bold goal, right? And so again, these are the two goals that we discussed based on the data. And this is kind of the resources, because we also want to make sure that we have what we need, our teachers have what we need to ensure that they are achieving that stretch goal or that bold goal. So that's for goal number one. Number two is early elementary reading proficiency goals. And we looked at it the same way too. We looked at where the state is, where the region, where the district is, and where we want to be, right? And so the trend goal, if we continue improvement as a district, we're going to end up at 41%. But if we want a something bigger goal, which is a stretch goal, we looked at least we will be at 51%, or and then the bold goal will be at 60%. Again, the bold goal is bigger than the trend, bigger than the stretch, and obviously it's going to require more resources to achieve it, because we're going to be focusing more on reading and lower grade, all the way to third grade. So again, these are some of the resources and assistance that we may need to, and our students and our teachers and our principals, campuses might need to achieve that stretch goal. And if we need to go to the bold goal, obviously we're going to need the stretch as well as additional resources. And every time that resources obviously means funds, right? Money that's going to cost us to make this happen for our students and our teachers. And we did that same exercise pretty much with also the third one, which college career amenity readiness. And with college career amenity readiness, we already shown huge improvement already. And so we created a trend goal and a stretch goal. We did not need to have a bold goal, because we believe with a little more help, I think we can get that stretch goal, which is it's going to be a very high goal. And this is some of the resources that we feel like we may need to achieve it. Mr. Ryan, I don't know if you want to add anything. I know I hear you still here with us, so I don't know if you want to add anything, sir, to what I discussed.
Good afternoon, boards. No, Dr. Isais, you very well presented. I just wanted to emphasize on the area of math. If you the first slide, there was no the first slide, sir. Yes, this one. There was no trend, because you see 2017 there's a 37%, then 2018 41%, then some reason the score dropped from 41% to 35%. So there was no, we did not find any trend, but we looked at the trend from state and region. Same slides from the state and region, and that's where we have the stretch goal and bold goal. I just want to emphasize the trend goal is a goal when we are working diligently, working very hard, and supporting our teacher the way we have been. So this is not just like, okay, just be at ease, just let the system work itself. It's not the case. We still need to work very hard to make it happen to the next year to improve 3 to 4%. But if we wanna go to the trend goal, by 2025, it will be 41%. But if we wanna go stretch goal, which is we are adding the trend from region 1 and state, and that's a trend we got the 4%, and that's how we start adding to our goal, and that's where we get 51%, or at least mimic the region 1 51%, and the bold goal when we are going above and beyond. So there was a trend in reading, but there was no trend in math.
So go ahead, Mr. Ryan.
In the stretch goal, a few things already have happened, like we see the technology one-on-one devices, it's already happened. So we already going one-to-one basis, level libraries in classrooms, and those are the few things when we are stretching and we are providing more resources to our students, to our teachers, and working together to make it, to stretch this goal. And bold goal is when you are going above and beyond for everything, and that's what the bold goal is.
So as you can see, I mean, so for example, hiring reading coaches in all our 14 elementary campuses to work with pre-K through third grade teachers and students, that in itself will be an additional expense. And you know, we're looking at hundreds of thousands of dollars just to have you know, reading coaches and if you know in our campuses. But that's something that we believe will help obviously our teachers and our students get to that stretch goal. But again, these are some suggestions, some ideas, and the money has to come from somewhere. And usually we'll have to reallocate the money because we don't have extra money. TEA is not giving us extra money to achieve these goals. They just want these goals to be set and they want us to achieve these goals, but they're not giving us extra funding for it. So it's up to us to try to, try to move things around. And if this is a priority and we believe this is a number one priority for us, then we have to put more money in these goals and to ensure that we're achieving them.
And just want to add to Dr. Isai's what he said, like if we add the reading coaches, like 14 PK3, it will cost us roughly about $840,000. So like if we start adding up all those costs, it will be some substantial cost.
Yeah, we'll have to cut somewhere to compensate for that money. So
those could be, Mr. Rana, those could probably be, I mean, I'm assuming some of them could come from federal because they're doing programs. They wouldn't come out of the regular budget. It possibly may be federal Title I funds.
Yes, it's a question about from Ms. Consino and Dr. Isais. I think they can, but
they can.
Yeah.
They can, but it's looking at the Title I budget, right, Dr. Valdez, and maybe I don't know exactly where we're at as far as if we have that extra money there, or we may have to reallocate, right? Maybe figure out move that money toward. Yes, you're right, toward hiring this 14 coaches, for example.
Dr. Aziz and Ms. Valdez, it's Mr. Guerrero.
Yes.
I'm going to have to leave now. Okay.
Oh, okay, Val.
Okay, we'll see y'all later. Continue.
Thank you, sir.
I have to leave too because I have patients waiting.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Or we still have a quorum. Okay. Anything else, Dr. Azzi, on this item?
No, I mean, so this is we wanted to share this with you and get your thoughts.
I don't have any questions. I think it looks good the way you have it.
Ms. Reina, I don't know if you have any other questions, Ms. Reina.
So what we need to decide, you all, is essentially the target, right? I think we're pretty right on with the language of the goals. But what is y'all's thoughts on where the target should be for each of the 3 goals?
Well, before we do a decision on that process, I think we need to see numbers, dollar amounts, so that it can be clear for all the board members to tie it in with each goal, whether it's trend goal, whether it's stretch goal. The cause is still going to be there regardless of what we do, even if it's at our level, just because, every year it grows. I mean, there's a cost to everything we do every year. But if we tie in a dollar amount to the trend goals, then I think and then bold, then we can see a difference of gains.
Can you see my screen, Mr. Perez?
There you go. I got it.
Yeah, so we have it written down here, and I'm sorry, it was in the comments section. But you can see, this is an estimate, right? Mm-hmm. So at 400,000, I'm sorry, 840,000 to hire 14 coaches. The Reading Academy, we're looking at that right now, but adjustment to reading software, we're looking at 150 at least per year, could be more. We're looking at different other programs, and they cost a lot more than 150. So these are an estimate. We can maybe put it together. But like this particular goal, sir, just for the stretch goal, we're looking over $1 million already.
Yeah, so you're looking at an estimate over a period of those 3 different goals, not to mention the ones that the state has also given us, right?
Right.
So
So this.
Yeah, so you're looking at about $5 million right there.
Yeah. So this is 1 for 1 goal. You're looking over $1 million just for goal 1 for the stretch goal.
Right.
Yeah.
And Dr. McMahon on board with us? Is she available or she's out?
I think she's on call.
Yep, she helped them think about the stretch or the bold goals.
Which is interesting because when I first came on board, and it's just not that I need to give you a history lesson, but this is one of the things that I asked when I first came into the program and saw the program. I said, so where's the dollars fixed to the cost, to the goals? And what I was told back then was, by Dr. McMahon, was, well, we're not fixing any dollars because, we want to get the goals set out first. Well, if we're setting goals, there's always a cost to whatever goal we're going to set. And we would have done this 2 years ago, it would have been different today, and maybe our cost would have been less because then we could have planned those differences. And I'm going back in history, but I think by showing our parents and families out there right now that the cost is substantial no matter how you slice it, that means we have to cut somewhere. And now we have to go back and analyze what those costs are and what those differences are. What is it that we want to, so to speak, put our foot in our mouth and say, hey, this is where we're gonna take our little bite. So for me to make a decision right now on the data, the data is good, but on the dollar amount is where I'm having a strong feel. I don't know about
Dr. AC, correct me if I'm wrong. The only thing we're voting on right now is on the bold and stretch goals. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
We're not voting on money. We're not voting on the expenditure. We're just voting on the that you put there. Correct?
Correct. But remember, Dr. Valdez, if we say that's the stretch goal, it's almost like we're saying, yes, we'll have to allocate or figure out how to fund the money, right? Because we won't be able to achieve it. We're going to aim for it, obviously, but we're going to need that extra push, right? Those extra resources. Wouldn't
it make better? I mean, to me, it would make better sense, and maybe I'm wrong. We don't have, I guess maybe we don't have currently right now the status of where our children are.
Right.
We don't. We're basically just guessing.
Right.
And to me, that's kind of a little bit, I guess, should I say? Because I don't know.
Cloudy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at some point we have to kind of adopt these goals. As I said, TEA push the dates to the end of January of 2021. Sorry. So at some point we have to adopt them prior.
I think if we keep them, superintendent, keep them. My recommendation is keep the goals without adding the stretch or the bold. Keep them where they're at. And let's do a plan process for the future to add the stretch and the bold. I think we're okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Hey guys, can I just chime in to give you a little bit of clarity on some things? There's a couple of things that are going on here. Like you have been told by TEA, you have to have House Bill 3 completed by January 31st. By setting your targets now, this allows Dr. Aziz in his budget planning for the next year. I don't think you're going to be able to adjust and amend anything for this year because, like you said, we don't know where our students are. We don't know where they're coming from. There's just so many unknowns. As coaches, what we're recommending, there are a couple of things. The target needs to be set. They have proposed 3 of them to you. Based upon our current situation with COVID, that bold target, because of the uncertainty, might be a little bit too much to take off and chew. Because these goals are for 5 years, and you change your goals when 2 things happen. Either you meet your goal and you adjust it, or the time has expired. So it's not like, oh, well, we'll start here with this target and then we'll wait and see and then change it, you know, the next year and change it the next year. It's set for a 5-year period for that because that's what the research aligns to. So the other thing is looking at, you know, we talked in our we talked in our training about not only having that deadline target, but also looking at those annual targets, you know, measuring ourselves along the way to make sure that we're making progress towards those. The annual targets, the baseline that you have is set upon the 2019 STAR data. We do not have any new STAR data since the 2019. So the recommendation coaches are making is, one, identify your deadline target. Do not set your annual targets until you can get these kiddos back in school, have some kind of assessment that we do, just like Dr. Valdez said, to set up some kind of clarity of where our kids are and what the impact of COVID is going to have on their initiation. So as soon as you possibly can, setting that deadline target would be beneficial, because as Dr. Aziz is moving into, because we're here in August right now, and we all know that, you know, budget planning doesn't start, you know, when you just start to do, you've got to start planning for budget with this as you go. And look at those recommendations, just like you were talking about the Title I. What are the Title I funds? Can some of these things come out of Title I funds? What would we have to adjust with our Title I funding? What is happening with the money that is coming in from the state that is available, and predictions for next year? So those are just a couple of things I want you to keep in mind as you address these things. It's important to remember that we talked about these numbers last October, way before COVID was ever even thought of. So I just want you to keep those things in mind as you continue with your discussions and make your decisions. Does anybody have any questions based upon what I'm sharing?
No, I don't. So Dr. AZ, what is your recommendation?
I mean,
To approve?
we can bring it again for another conversation. It was a discussion and possible action. I think I got some input from you, from our board members, and we can go back to the drawn date table and then maybe bring it again next month, or the, you know, hopefully by then we can take some action.
Well, I was thinking maybe for budgetary purposes, because I know the budget is like 2 weeks away, or a week and a half away. I prefer that we empower you to move forward with what you want to do with these goals and the budget. I mean, that's how I feel. You're our superintendent.
Yeah, I think the goals are ours, though, Dr. Valdez. The goals are ours to set to him. I think I'm good with the goals, but the only thing is the percentage data that we need to put on there for him to move forward and put it in the budget. That's what, you know, we were just discussing. I like the way the goals are set, but what I was saying is to adopt the goals as they are, with with the caveat on the number that we have on the side. The percentage number remains not as a bold trend or the other one we had prior to that, but have the basic and then let the soup work the numbers for the what was the other one? Not the bold.
The
stretch and bold.
How would you all feel about, okay, the math and the reading, the literacy, third grade goals? We have further to go and the progress is less over time. How would you all feel about doing the stretch goals for those two, and then doing the bold goal for the goal 3 around college and career readiness? Because we see more progress on that one over time.
No, well, that's what I'm saying is let the superintendent, we'll work on let him work those numbers regardless, but we still got, you know, for me, it's accept what we have current and give him a goal so that he can have those goals already established. With a caveat of having the other trends, the bold and the stretch, added maybe later on, depending on our figures, and then also depending on COVID-19, just like Dr. McMahon spoke about. That's what I'm saying.
So Robert, if that's the case that you want, then are you saying wait until later on, like December and January, to set these goals? Because once they're set, there is no changing them for 5 years.
Well, actually, I think we rewrote our policy, Dr. McMahon, if you recall correctly, that these goals would not be changed. You said two things, but we added a third item, unless TEA made,
that is TEA's requirement that they maintain for 5 years once they are set.
That is correct, but we added to the policy, if you recall, that we would not change them unless the goals were met, unless, what was the second one that you mentioned? You mentioned another one, but we also included a third one, that unless there was changes in TEA made.
Yes, and that's exactly where you guys are now, because you guys actually had some goals set prior from previous work that you guys have been doing, but House Bill 3 required you to make these updates before the deadline of those goals came about. So you are functioning under that TEA criteria under House Bill 3 to rewrite these goals, because we had goals that were not based on the third grade reading, the third grade math. They were based on other things that TEA changed in statute. So the goals that you're writing right now are the requirement of TEA statute. So you're not penalized for adjusting the previous goals that you had and making them align to what statute says you now have to do.
Dr. Azzi, I think what we need to do is we need to just, I think we just need to go with what you presented, approve and recommend it, and then once our students come back and you have more valid data, then we can adjust it if needed because of the current situation that we're in.
Okay.
So, but what part, Dr. Valdez, the stretch or the bold goals that
he proposed to you 3 targets? Which one? Your responsibility is.
I think we need to approve all 3 of his targets. Obviously, they took time and energy looking at making these. I think we need to approve them, and then once the students come back, once he has more valid data, then we can adjust, and we're going to say, you know what, we're too far from the bold goals. Let's readjust it.
Okay, so Dr. Valdez, he presented to you 3 targets per goal. Your job as a board is to select one of those targets per goal. And once those are approved, that target cannot be adjusted for 5 years.
No, that's what I was saying.
It's going to have to, ma'am, it's going to have to be adjusted, Dr. McMahon. I'm totally going to disagree with you because we cannot say that this goal is going to stay. Let's say we go with the stretch goal, but we evaluate and the students are significantly below that. Then we're going to have to adjust them, ma'am. This is a unique situation. We're not going to put the superintendent.
I think, if I may say something, I think it's would be best if we can just go with the target goal, and then the normal one, the target, and then
trend goal
later on, and then we can move forward.
The nice thing about going with the target goal at this time, there, just like Dr. Valdez and all of you have said, that there is so much uncertainty, and I know the drive of this superintendent and the drive of this staff. They could achieve that target, that trend target, before the 5-year period, and then you can update it if you meet that early or the deadline comes. So I think taking things a little bit more cautiously during this time is a still very challenging yet safe approach as your coach.
That was exactly what I meant at the very beginning, is to keep the current target that we've had, and then as we progress in the next few years, I think we can make a difference. And I know we're making a difference, and I know the teachers are working hard at it as well, as much as the superintendent is and the staff. I just want to make sure that we are not undermining ourselves and cutting ourselves at our foot before we can even walk.
Yeah, Robert, I think you're on target with that. Just remember that this goal is for 5 years. Let's all pray that COVID does not last 5 years. So you might have just a little bit of growth in year one and year two, just because what Dr. Valdez was saying, the uncertainty of where the kids are and where they're coming. So when you're working on your annual targets, you might have slow growth year one, a little bit more year two, more year three, more year four, and bigger gains for year five to reach that. But I would not set those annual targets until the superintendent has had a chance to get these back in and give some kind of baseline to answer the question that Dr. Valdez had, or where are our kids right now? And use that data to make those annual targets.
Are we ready to take this to a vote?
And Superintendent, so can you just name what those targets are for each of those early childhood math?
If I may suggest something, Dr. Isais. I think in the if you can put the slide back, the PowerPoint, the slide number 5. Slide number 5.
Yeah, hold on, sir. 1 second. I'm sorry.
As you see, there is no trend in the area of math. We have a 17, 37, 18, 41, 2019, 35. So there was a stretch of 4 points. We gained 4 points and then we lost 4 points. So we are at no trend. So if we look at the trend, from the region 1 and state, we can see there was some trend, like a 2% or a 1.5%. So if we want to pick 2025, we need to look at the state and region 1 to pick our trend goal in DISD, because DISD has no trend for coming year. We were hoping 2020 there will be a star test, we can get some trend, but it didn't happen now. So we have no data available, so there is no trend in the area of math as we speak right now. I just wanted to bring to your attention because there is no trend in the area of math. Dr. Isais, if you can put the slide number 6, 9. 6, the reading one? Yes. Here you see the trend 20, 27, 31, 32. So 4% gain, 1% gain. If we average them up, so in 3 years, so you could see there was a trend. And that's why we pick 2020-25. Our trend goal will be 41% in the area of reading. But we could not find the trend in the area of math. I just wanted to bring to your attention, if we go pick the goal, we can pick the goal, 3rd grade reading, but there is no trend goal in the area of math.
We have a trend here also.
And we have a trend here in the 3rd goal too. Yes, sir. So we can pick a number from looking at the region 1 and state, which can be a very stretch and bold goal, because we are looking not our data, we are looking other people's data to make our goal.
Correct. Yes. And if we stay on trend, we'll still be behind the region if the region stays on trend, if we make that goal. I think zooming out though, if we say in 5 years, when I think about how we would communicate this to our community, these goals would mean like where we're going in 5 years is we're going to ensure at least half of our students are on grade level. Part of me feels like that's not aggressive enough, but that's also what these goals would say. If we set that goal at 51% for reading and then 40-something% for math, that would mean that would be interpreted as, is like half of our students are on grade level, the other half are not.
Well, I think it's still up for perception and view because we don't have the data to help us with it.
I'm saying that's that's what the target would be.
Right.
That would be like the end goal.
But on the math side, given what Mr. Ron just mentioned, I think we can still be bold enough, I guess, without using the stretch goal, bold stretch, or the stretch goal, bold stretch, bold goal, can't even speak here. But if we keep it at the trend that we had previously, which was on 37%, 35% to 41%, we still increased it, but still leave the goal the same. I mean, we can still obtain it because we just went back. But they're still working on the numbers themselves to make an improvement. But regardless of that, we can still keep that trend, previous trend that we had, to maintain our goal of, I think, 41% that we had previously, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing from folks is that given the impact of COVID-19, given that we don't know exactly where students are right now, all we've got is the 2019, is that folks would feel comfortable using the trend goal as the target.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Is that a fair summary?
The target goal.
Yes.
Well, yes, the target goal, yes, because it both talks to target and trend.
Yeah, Dr. Valdez, is that?
So that would be the 47% for reading?
Mm-hmm.
What would it be for math?
51, did I see that, Superintendent?
That's the stretch goal, 47 for math. Talking about stretch? We're talking about target. Target will be.
The trend for reading is 41, and go back to math.
We remember we didn't have a trend, so we have to
You
develop.
have to go with stretch.
No, that's 47 is the stretch.
So I think you could come up with something that's kind of in between the two. That Dr. Aziz, is there a number that you would recommend, given our time? Maybe
I'd say 45%. 45%. There's only 2% more of the 41 anywhere. 3% out of the 41%. We've stated that before.
45. We can put 45 in 5 years. We can do it.
It does make sense because if you look at the trend of the state and region, they are going 2% up, like a region 49 to 51, 51 to 53. So they are increasing 2% every year. So we go, if we want to follow the region, so it will be 5 times to 10, 10 plus 35 will be 45. So, but this is very close to our stretch goal. So we might need some assistance to getting even the trend goal in the area of math.
Yeah,
I believe we'll be okay, Mr. Rashad. I think we'll be all right with that. I'm satisfied with that.
Okay.
Yeah, keeping in mind that's your target in 5 years.
Yep.
Okay. So we talked about 45 for math, 42 for reading.
41 for reading.
41 for reading, I'm sorry. 41 for reading. And then for the last goal, I think we talked about 90. What is it?
75%.
75%. But by the way, 75% would give us an A when you do the conversion, right? Using the TI conversion for this goal.
So that's a 75% raw score. Is that right, Mr. Reyna?
Yes,
yep.
That's raw score. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, will give us an A when you convert it. So we go to 75%?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think with this one, given it's 5 years out, I would like us to be more aggressive with this one because we're seeing a greater trend. So I would want to see us at least at the stretch goal for that one.
75 and above, they are above 90%.
Mhm.
Do you want to be at 77%? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I want to be a bit more aggressive with this one because we see more progress more readily in this area. And then the other two at.
The only thing is, Alicia, is that that particular goal is broken down into 3 parts, and 2 parts are doing real poorly. It's one that's carrying it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, the career part, yeah. And I think my hope is that with our early college, high school, and some of those programs that have, T-STEM, is that we can accelerate the progress with that one.
We will. We will. Within 5 years, we will, because we'll probably, by then, we would have at least our first cohort, maybe even the second group, graduating from the early college, high school.
Yeah, and that's an important thing to remember, Dr. Aziz. I'm glad you put that up. It's graduates, and the data is always a year behind. So if you start a program in, getting more of your sophomores and juniors taking dual credit or other courses, you won't get credit for their work until those kids become a graduate. So if you up your number of sophomores taking a dual credit class by a great deal, you will not see that hit your data for 3 years when they become sophomore, junior, senior, and a year behind. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. Because that's always a hard one to remember and deal with.
Any other questions? Are we ready to vote on this item?
I move to approve as discussed.
Alicia, how do you vote? Or do I have a second? And who else do we still have here? David?
Favor.
I also vote in favor. Motion carries. Second item, discussion on board policy manual. Dr. Az?
Thank you. And this is Ms. Reyna, right? This is a board policy.
Yeah, you all remember we started working on this as well. This board policy manual is what is our kind of book for how we govern and how we operate. And so this is the draft. Dr. Valdez, myself, and Robert met with Dr. McMahon to go through this, to put together a first draft for you all to look at. But given we don't have 3 board members here, I wonder, David, if you have any questions, because the 3 of us were in the conversation to create this draft, but
All right.
the 3 of us are there. I guess there's 2 places that we, in particular, we were thinking about was both the superintendent constraints and the board constraints. Those were the 2 areas that kind of we wanted to make sure that we got some feedback on before we bring it to a more final version for the full board to vote on. So we're not voting on the final version today. It needs to include the goals, but wanted to get feedback on the superintendent constraints that's in here and then the board self-constraints that are in here. So that is, and I can show this on my screen. And or any adjustments that you all, as you read through it, you wanted to make.
I don't think we need to see it, Alicia. I think the only question that I had is on the superintendent's evaluation. I don't agree in using the LSG evaluation for the superintendent. I think we need to use more of a mixture of the one that you provided us last, because I think that's more cohesive of the true role of a superintendent. That's the only change or the only adjustment.
Okay. This one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how might you change the wording here? Because it says 80% student outcome goals adopted, endo targets, automatic indicator of success. Below the threshold, the board's judgment shall be indicator of success. What would you say we should change there?
I think we should just change the board shall evaluate the superintendent based on a school board approved appraisal system. That's it.
Well, I think it's important to call out that we use this idea of the performance of the district is indistinguishable from the performance of the superintendent. So I think we should call out student outcome goals, but what we can say is that it is a combination maybe of board members' reflections on the superintendent responsibilities. Because that's the part that we've kind of combined.
Well, we can do that in that part, Alicia. It's just put in parentheses on the ones for where it says board student outcome goals and compliance with the superintendent constraints. Because right now we stopped in March, correct?
Say again, stopped what in March?
We stopped the Lone Star governance in March. Am I correct?
No. I mean, I don't think so, because they're just board practices.
Yeah, well, some of the practices have already been stopped across board. Now, Dr. McMahon can speak to this better than I can, obviously, but I know that Lone Star governance has ceased in some areas. Now, on the student outcomes and goals, actually, student outcome goals, where are you going to measure that from, and how are you going to measure that based from March and STAR data that we no longer have? That's how we addressed it, correct? So what I would do is just put that in parentheses until this COVID-19 goes away, and we still do right now, like Dr. Valdez just discussed, and put it like we did last time, until all this goes away. Maybe it ever does go away.
So your suggestions to change the wording to include a note about COVID-19 in relationship to the data that we don't have this year. Is that right?
That's correct. If you just put parentheses from October based on the school system's achievement of the boards, where it says board student outcome goals, and compliance with superintendent constraints, that's what I would put in parentheses right after that, dependent on COVID-19. That's all you have to do. And then add the other line that Dr. Valdez just mentioned.
Okay. Let me show you all was there any questions about?
Well, actually, it would be David that would have questions, Ms. Reyna. David, do you have any questions? Because me and Colonel have already been through this.
Oh, you guys read that, wrote it, everything. No, I don't have any questions. I'm good.
All good.
Okay, so then we can bring this back to a final read in September for us as a board to vote on. My one other thing as I was reading through this, I didn't think about this, Dr. Valdez, when we were reading with Dr. McManuel, but oftentimes a question that comes up with boards is visiting like campuses or schools. I mean, granted, we're in COVID right now, but it's different. But if we need to put anything in there, I pulled some language from another school district that was a TASB School Board of the Year. And what some language they have, I pulled this from there. Language they have is trustees shall contact the superintendent's office prior to any school or department visit, except when attending a scheduled school function or activity, which parents or members of the public are invited. I'm thinking we should include something in here around just visitation, because it's just like something that board members just need clarification on oftentimes.
And not only that, you also need to make sure whatever they have a relative or a loved one there, or they have one of the students is their child and they're going there based off, they go pick up their child, or for somebody to go talk to the principal about their child. So they might go in the capacity as a parent, not as a board member. And we got to take that in consideration.
I think, Alicia, if there's any additions that you want to make, just send it to the board, let us review, and then we can look at it at the next board meeting when we bring it for final approval.
Yeah, I'll put it back in there, and you all will get the next revised form here. I'll put it, or Dr. McMahon, you can send it out to everybody too. Okay, we'll make those two updates, you all, and then the goals will be in there, and the goal progress measures will be in there when we bring it back to the board for approval.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am, so much.
Thank you, Okay, that one was not an action item. So now the third item, discussion and possible action on the board quarterly self-evaluation. Dr. Az?
Thank you, Dr. Valdez. Ms. Reyna, I don't know if you want to.
So y'all remember quarterly, we self-evaluate ourselves, the board, on the Lone Star Governance Framework. Last time we did this, everybody sent their, scoring over to Robert, and he could compile it and then look at kind of where we are, and then we had a discussion about it. Do y'all remember kind of when we did that and we went through? And so I don't know if there's particular places, Mr. Perez, that you saw that maybe we were different, like had a range in, or if we're pretty similar in how we evaluated ourselves. I think depending on what you saw and what folks submitted, then we can talk about any places where maybe we were all similar and therefore we feel pretty aligned, or maybe there was some places where there was some differences, therefore we should talk about where we are.
Well, we need to put something higher first. You were the only one that submitted the information. No one else in the board submitted anything for us to discuss. And I looked at the data based on the last data we had back in March. So if you were thinking about, for example, March, it'll be April, May, and June, we would have had another update, which we didn't have because of COVID-19. We would never have met any of those areas for us to evaluate ourselves or self-evaluate ourselves based on what they were asking us to complete. We couldn't have community outreach unless we did, obviously like we're doing now. And that'll be the only way to do it would be the way we're doing it now through Zoom. And then the other ones that we looked at were based on outcomes, student outcome goals, and so on and so forth. So there was a great percentage, about 80%, 25% of it that really we couldn't see, or at least I couldn't see to vote on or to give a number to evaluate myself on. I don't know how the rest of the board members did, but only obviously yourself, Mr. Guerrero, Dr. Mary, and everyone else didn't submit anything.
So we didn't do a self-evaluation essentially, other than me.
Yes.
Okay. So what do we need to do in order to be able to do that? Because there's a good chunk of them that we can look at and see where we are, because it's all related to vision. I think the part that you're talking about is a little bit harder, right? The advocacy, given our current context. But a lot of the other things like the structure, the time, all of that we can take a look at. And again, just to remind ourselves that it's not, this is not a disciplinary tool. It's really a learning tool. It's a tool to help us think about where are we against the behaviors that actually are the behaviors that have been proven to show strongest board behaviors related to student outcomes. And so it's just really a reflection point for us. It's also an important step as we think about what it means to evaluate the superintendent and think about his performance. We have to be thinking about what are our own board behaviors against best board practice. So what do you all think should be the next step if kind of, we didn't really evaluate ourselves?
I guess we
or what needs to happen?
Get the form and send it out to each board member so we can start working on it and start from there.
Okay, so Mr. Perez, like you did last time, you want to send it out to everyone? Because it's the exact same thing as we did last time, Mr. De Los Rios. It's the
No. I got, yes, I can do that again, but,
And that way we can work on it, and from there, that way, now we have plenty of time to work on it and submit it, and then we can go back and we can discuss that, and go over what we need or what we should focus on.
Yeah, because I think we talked about this between, I think it was last Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, when you and I talked about it, Alicia. So.
And Robert, I think in order for the board to make some determination, and especially in those areas such as structure and advocacy, they're going to have some data, like over the last 3 months, how many meetings did you have? How long was each meeting? How many agenda items were on each meeting? So the part about, the monitoring student outcome goals, that's going to be very difficult to do because you didn't do that and nobody did that. You know, TEA has kind of given a hiatus on these self-evaluations, but I commend you for continuing to look at the things that you can control during an epidemic and looking at, in order for you guys to self-evaluate, you're going to have what some of those numbers are. How many meetings did we have? How long were the meetings? You know, did we stay within the 2-hour time limit? Did we, you know, have the total number of agenda items? Those things that the board can control, I think are things, I don't think you will come up with a number like we've been doing in the past, because there are so many things that currently during this time were not applicable, but there certainly were things that were. So Robert, before you send that out, if you and I want to get together and go through those things and let's talk about what those things were that you can report on, we'll kind of identify those things that you can judge yourselves on and see what we need. How do you feel about that, Robert?
Well, yeah, we can do that. I mean, but it goes back to what I just said. You know, a number underneath that gives you a grade point almost of, like we were last time, of 72, 23%.
You're not going to get there.
We're not going to get there. So it'll be discrediting to us to show the public, oh, we're only doing 10% of this or 20% of that. I don't think it's fair to the board as a whole. But yes, if we go and just say, hey, this is what we're doing and not give a number, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I think we can look at, these are the things that we did do, that we did meet, that, you know, we are on track with. And who knows when you're going to be able to collect student outcome data again and start revolving around that. And Alicia, I agree. It's not about the final number. It's about the work that you are still doing. And you guys are still doing great work as a board.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Well, I just, you know, whenever you want to give me a call and we'll sit down and discuss that quickly. Sure.
If there's no,
I'll email you some times for Thursday. Does that work for you?
Yes, ma'am.
okay, if there's no other questions, we can take action on this item.
I don't think there's any action because we didn't have a synthesis of the board self-eval.
But it says discussion and possible action. So we were just gonna discuss it? Because it says discussion and possible action.
Yeah, move to just for discussion and remove the action.
We can choose to table it since it's going to be brought back at the next board meeting.
Great. Recommended table.
Okay.
A second.
Alicia?
In favor.
And I'm in favor too. Motion carries. Will be now, the time is 2:54. We'll be moving into executive session as authorized by the Texas Government Code sections 55.071, 072, 073, 074, 075, 076, 082, 083, and 084.
Excellent job, board.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
To let everybody know, because a couple of our board members they have to leave. Some of them had to go back to work and things like that. So we lost quorum. And so in that case, we are suspending the meeting. So we'll come back for next board meeting and take care of executive items. Thank you.